Welcome to r/relationships, where OP loses their friend because of their friend's vegan wife. A friendship ruined because of my friend's vegan wife. Last November, I went to visit a friend, Kevin, and stayed at his house with his wife, Karen. They had recently moved a couple of states away, and I thought it would be nice to catch up. Kevin and I were part of an old friend group from work, and although Karen was always invited to our hangouts, she rarely joined, so I didn't know her very well. Before the visit, Karen sent me a list of food rules. One big one, no non-vegan food in their kitchen. I asked if I could bring milk, and she reluctantly agreed, but told me it had to stay in the mini fridge Kevin used for his fish. For context, Karen is a serious vegan, the type who constantly talks about it and calls non-vegan food trash. Kevin isn't fully vegan, he eats fish, but Karen controls the groceries, so everything else in their house is vegan. I knew this would be a challenge, but I figured I could deal with it for a weekend. When I arrived, something felt off. The food just tasted weird. Even the waffles for breakfast and the tuna casserole Kevin made for lunch didn't sit right. It wasn't spoiled or anything, just odd. I assumed it was because it was all vegan, but I couldn't finish much of it. Thankfully, I had packed a few protein snacks, not vegan, and I kept them hidden at the bottom of my suitcase. I wasn't specifically told I couldn't bring snacks, so I didn't think it would be a big deal. I kept the trash and disposed of it when I left. Saturday afternoon, Kevin, some friends, and I went to a local market, and I ate street food there. That night at a restaurant, I ordered a steak and practically inhaled it. I felt no shame because I was starving. Fast forward to today, a couple of hours before my husband and I were supposed to visit Kevin and Karen again. Karen called me out of the blue to say I couldn't bring milk this time. She also said no snacks and scolded me for not asking last time. That's when she let it slip. She had gone through my suitcase when I was there at the market with Kevin. She found my snacks and was apparently furious about it. Then she casually admitted to dumping my milk and replacing it with almond milk during my last visit. She thought it was funny and bragged about how I didn't even notice. That's when it all clicked. The off taste in the waffles and casserole? Almond milk. I didn't realize because Kevin told me he wanted to save the milk for cooking, so I hadn't checked it myself. I was so mad I couldn't think of anything polite to say, so I told her I had another call coming in and I hung up. After calming down, I called her back. I asked why she went through my suitcase and why she thought it was okay to dump my milk. Her response? It's my house, and I have the right to know what's in it. She also claimed nobody can tell the difference between cow's milk and almond milk, so it wasn't a big deal. I told her she was a controlling, self-centered freak, and I mentioned that Kevin has a stash of real cheese hidden in his mini fridge. Then I hung up on her and I called Kevin. Kevin sided with her. He said I crossed the line by asking to bring milk in the first place, and that it was rude to order meat at dinner during my last visit. We argued, and I finally said it seemed like our lives were going in different directions, and maybe we didn't need to be friends anymore. He didn't fight me on it. Now, I know I could have handled things better, but maybe I should have asked if it was okay to have snacks in my room or kept them in my car. I also shouldn't have called her names, even though she totally deserved it. But I can't get over the fact that she went through my stuff, dumped my milk, and risked my health by swapping it with almond milk. What if I had been allergic? My husband thinks they're in the wrong. He pointed out that since their vegan lifestyle isn't the norm, they should have been more accommodating, especially since Kevin gets to eat fish. He also agrees that Karen invading my privacy and replacing my milk was way out of line. He thinks ending the friendship was the right call. A little while ago, I got a, "Hey, can we talk?" text from Kevin. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to respond. I'm just done with it. Not the jerk. I wouldn't want to be friends anymore either. She had no right to replace your milk after allowing you to bring it. She had no right to go through your bags. She is a crazy controlling weirdo, so I don't see why you would want to apologize for anything you said. I certainly would never spend time with someone who thinks they can control what you eat at a restaurant. I'm guessing the only reason this friendship lasted was because you never saw the wife. OP. I feel like maybe I'm overreacting by ending the friendship. The only thing I'm 100% sure on is that I am owed an apology for going through my stuff and for the milk. I wasn't going to starve, and I had the option of prepping meals in his mini kitchen. He just offered to do the cooking. I spent a little time around her, but clearly not enough to know her well, since I didn't know she'd do something like that. We could always get a hotel, but the closest one is 30 minutes away. It also seems rude to go down there and completely avoid her. I don't know. Wow, I would have been able to tell the difference between regular and almond milk because my throat would have closed up quickly. I hate it when people think it's okay to mess with someone else's food, regardless of where they are. It's never okay. Update. I want to clear up something about the bag Karen found in my suitcase. It wasn't just snacks. It had emergency cash, a credit card, and yeah, protein bars, just in case I couldn't eat their food. It wasn't hidden because I was sneaking food in, but because I wanted to keep it safe. Anyway, I texted Kevin yesterday and said I needed time to think. I'd get back to him today. In the meantime, I took some advice from you guys and reached out to our friend group. After a big chat with everyone, and a more personal conversation with the friends who were there that weekend, I learned a lot. Turns out of our core group of 6, I'm the only one still in regular contact with Kevin. The other 2 only went on that trip because I was going and visiting family was a bonus. Yikes. After sleeping on it, I realized you were all right about Kevin being just as bad as Karen with the whole milk switch thing. I was so focused on Karen's actions that I let Kevin off the hook. Plus, I noticed he never actually addressed Karen going through my suitcase. When I brought it up during our call yesterday, he just changed the subject and said it was rude of me to bring milk in the first place. Classic deflection. I called him on my lunch break today and laid everything out. Karen digging through my stuff, him keeping quiet about the milk switch, Karen pulling the switch after telling me I could bring my own milk, and how what I eat isn't their business as long as I'm not messing with their food. His response? He would only apologize for saying it was rude to order non-vegan food at the restaurant. Everything else, not his problem. He claimed that since they had plenty of food for me to eat, there was nothing to apologize for. Then he dropped the bomb. Karen had told him not to mention the milk switch because she wanted to prove I couldn't tell the difference between vegan and non-vegan food. When I pointed out that I barely ate any of it, so obviously I could tell, he just shrugged it off. He also said he was going to tell me eventually, but conveniently forgot. Sure, Kevin. When I called Karen's behavior out as ridiculous, he said he didn't agree with her going through my stuff, but that I wasn't owed an apology because I broke the rules by sneaking meat into their house. Turns out there was a meat stick in that emergency bag. I explained that I was only told to keep non-vegan food out of their kitchens and that it was just leftover from my drive there. Unlike Karen, I didn't tamper with anyone else's food. Big difference. Then came the real kicker. He said I wasn't getting an apology because after I told Karen about his secret cheese stash, she unplugged his fridge while he was at work. All his refrigerated fish went bad and he blamed me for it. According to him, we're even now because he didn't tell me about the milk and I ratted out his cheese. I tried to explain how those situations weren't remotely the same and that I wasn't responsible for Karen's actions, but he wouldn't hear it. He even threw in a random comment about knowing I'm not allergic to nuts. I have no idea where that came from, but okay, Kevin. I finally asked if he really believed I didn't deserve any apologies from them. He said yes, so I told him that if he couldn't see what they did was wrong or grow a spine, I couldn't help him. I suggested he calls me when he gets the courage to stand up to Karen. He hung up on me. Yesterday, I thought I owed him an apology and that maybe we could salvage our friendship. Today, I realized I've been holding on to something that died a long time ago. You guys were right. I ignored way too much and I gaslit myself into thinking it was okay. So thank you all for giving me the reality check that I needed. You're the real MVPs. Thanks for reading. My wife recently reconnected with an old friend and is spending a lot of time with him. How do I handle this appropriately? To set the stage, my wife, who's 41 female, and I, 40 male, have been married for 15 years, and we have a 5-year-old daughter together. Before we got together, my wife had a friend, KC, who's 44 male, who she occasionally hooked up with. She mentioned once, a long time ago, that she cheated on her previous boyfriend with him before their relationship ended. I filed it under things that happened before me, and I didn't think about it again. Their friendship ended not long before we met, and it wasn't on great terms. He almost got her pregnant, but she was able to take care of it. When we started dating, she was still firming up that boundary with him, but from my perspective, it seemed like a done deal. I never had any reason to doubt her commitment to that decision. Fast forward to now. She recently reconnected with KC through a mutual friend. Apparently, he's into crypto, and he's got her and a few others in some kind of boot camp to teach them the ropes of investing. It started with her attending a couple of these sessions, but it didn't stop there. Now they're going on walks, having long phone calls, and spending way more time together than I'm comfortable with. She's been open about it, though. She tells me when she's meeting him and what they're doing, so it's not like she's sneaking around. He's married and has 3 kids, which she mentions as if it's a reassurance. But I can't shake how weird it feels that someone she once had that kind of history with is suddenly back in her life like this. It's like a switch flipped, going from, I never want to see him again, to spending hours with him regularly. Things came to a head last weekend. She said she was going for a quick walk with him at night, and that quick walk turned into a 4-hour hangout. When she told me today that she was planning to meet up with him again, I finally laid it all out. I told her she's a grown woman and can make her own choices, but the intensity of their renewed friendship is crossing a line for me. I reminded her how much I despise cheating and made it crystal clear that if I feel like this situation turns inappropriate, I'll walk away without hesitation. She knows my history. She knows I've been cheated on before and how much it messed me up. I've always been upfront about having zero tolerance for it, so it's not like this is new information for her. She got upset, of course. She stormed out of the house and has been outside talking on the phone for a while now. I'm pretty sure she's talking to him. Meanwhile, I'm here looking after our daughter and her little friend, trying to keep it together. A few hours later, things escalated again. Before she left to meet Casey, she wanted to talk. She defended their friendship and asked why I'm fine with her hanging out with her other exes, but not him. For context, I've met 2 of her other exes. They're decent guys and they don't bother me. They're respectful and not part of any complicated history. Casey, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Context matters. I brought up the cheating and she immediately jumped in to correct me, saying that it wasn't Casey she cheated with, but someone else with a similar name. Honestly, that detail feels irrelevant at this point. Then she started talking about how she and Casey had to talk through what happened with their hookups all those years ago. I was floored. Why does she need to rehash all that with him? When I asked her that, she said it was necessary for closure. I told her it's ridiculous and inappropriate to even go there, especially now that they're spending all this time together. We went back and forth for what felt like forever. The conversation just kept looping. I said I'm not comfortable with how intense this friendship is, and she kept insisting that it's harmless. I also reiterated my boundaries. She's an adult and can do whatever she wants, but she's not free from the consequences of those choices. If I feel like she's lying or crossing the line, I'm out, period. At the end of it, she just stared at me with tears in her eyes and this look of pure frustration. She didn't blow up, which she's done before, but you could tell she was holding it in. She said she was going to meet him anyway, tried to kiss me goodbye, and I refused. I told her again that she's free to do whatever she wants, but she better be prepared to deal with the fallout. She slammed the door on her way out and drove off. So now I'm sitting here wondering what the heck is going to happen when she comes back. Does Casey's wife know about their past friendship? OP. Yeah, they know each other and used to be friendly. His wife used to actually be good friends with my wife, apparently, but they lost touch with each other after we moved away for a while, and his wife only married him years after that friends with benefits thing went down, even though she already had a kid from him or something. That's at least what I remember. I don't have any contact with her. It's all a bit convoluted. I'm a very different person to my wife. She has tons of friends. I only have a couple. She's very social and I'm not, etc. About the possible cheating, yeah, I'm upset, but also I feel a bit numb about all of this. Just exhausted, I guess. Anyway, we won't be sharing a bed tonight. I'm going to watch a movie and sleep in the guest room. Reading your past posts, you two were on shaky ground when you were dating. Now that this man has re-entered her life, this relationship is over. She was looking for a way out, and she found it by cheating on you in front of your face, with your approval until now. I'm sorry, but sometimes your love isn't enough to keep the other person in love with you, and they will do anything they can to end it besides actually telling you that they're finished with the relationship. OP. Yeah, we've had our ups and downs for sure. Recently, we've stabilized a bit after lots of individual therapy to deal with my anger and resentment towards her, but current events throw a wrench into that. Numbed out is all I feel right now. Curious what my therapist has to say about this, to be honest, seeing her next week again. Has your wife ever cheated on you before? OP. No, she never cheated on me, at least that I know of. This behavior of her is not totally out of the norm for her, meeting friends, even male ones, and I never had a weird feeling about it. It's almost never new people, but people she's known longer than me. Generally, I'm not a very jealous person. Why don't you go to meet her old friend? OP. She's invited me out to meet him and to come to his boot camps. I'm just not interested in him and his BS. Update. So after she ran off to meet him at some bar, she came home around midnight. I was still up watching TV. She walked in looking unsure of herself and sat down at the end of the couch. She started by saying she was sorry for getting so angry earlier. She told me she met with him and they talked about everything. Apparently, he told her that I was right and admitted it was weird how much time they'd been spending together. Then she said she called a few friends for their opinions and they all echoed the same thing, that this could easily be seen as an emotional affair, even if that wasn't her intention. Hearing that was infuriating. I mean, I appreciated her apology, but the fact that she only seemed to take it seriously after hearing it from other people rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I've been saying this the whole time, and it didn't click until her friends and this guy himself pointed it out. She tried to explain herself, saying she wasn't trying to hurt me or dismiss my feelings. She claimed that this whole thing was about learning something from him that she believed could change her life. Apparently, he's some big shot day trader and he's teaching her and a group of others the ins and outs of trading. She said it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to finally contribute financially in a meaningful way and build a better future for us. I told her I wasn't trying to stand in the way of her learning something valuable, but the way she was going about it, with the late-night walks and constant calls, was not okay. She insisted on showing me what she was doing, so I let her. For the next hour, she went on about charts, trading platforms, leverage, and indicators. She was surprisingly knowledgeable about it all, which was kind of shocking since she's usually overwhelmed by anything involving math or bureaucracy. I've seen her struggle with basic adulting stuff like filling out forms and dealing with the bank, yet here she was, diving into something as complicated as crypto day trading like it was her life's passion. I couldn't help but be impressed, even if the situation was still ticking me off. We ended up setting some ground rules. No meeting with him in the evenings or on weekends, no phone calls after 6 p.m., and no one-on-one hangouts, only group settings. For the most part, she stuck to the rules, though she's bent them a few times. When she does, she at least gives me a heads up beforehand, which helps. But I can tell she's not thrilled about having these boundaries in place. She's clearly trying to keep the peace though, which I appreciate. Since then, things have cooled off a bit. I don't get instantly angry every time his name comes up anymore. That being said, she's become obsessed with trading and constantly talks about it. It's honestly really annoying. She thinks she's some future millionaire, always ranting about market trends and strategies. It's exhausting to listen to, and I just can't help but feel like she's still got a bit of a crush on him, even if it's just admiration. I found myself emotionally distancing over the past couple of months. This whole situation drained me, and I don't have the energy to keep hashing it out or making it into a bigger fight. At the end of the day, this isn't some dramatic cheating story, and I'm not here to pretend it is. It's a rough patch in a normal relationship. I don't think she's cheating physically, but I do think she's caught up in some kind of infatuation with him, even if it's just tied to her excitement about learning this new skill. That said, people have crushes sometimes in a long-term relationship. It's not ideal, but it does happen. I don't want to nuke our marriage over this, especially when it feels like something that might blow over eventually. If it doesn't, I'm prepared to walk away. But for now, I'm trying to keep things together. This is it for now. It's messy, frustrating, and exhausting, but it's my life, and I'm handling it the best I can. This relationship is on a timer, and I think OP knows it deep in his heart. They're just not compatible, and I don't even get the feeling they particularly like each other. OP doesn't realize the massive mess and financial issue that he's going to suffer very soon. OP would have been better off if she was cheating on him. Crypto and day trading with leverage? Oh boy. With how dismissive the wife is acting, and with how much resentment OP talks about his wife's activities, I've got a feeling that the moment they get stabilized a bit, they're heading for a divorce. If this is what OP wants for the rest of his life, more power to him. Karen stole my car, so I called the cops on her. Last year, I moved in with my boyfriend and his dad. My boyfriend and I were in a long-distance relationship for a few years, and I moved across the country to be with him after I finished graduate school. Due to such a large distance, I opted to sell my car and buy a new one after arriving. When I did this, my boyfriend helped me out by loaning me some money to help pay the down payment, but I have since paid him back. Last week, my boyfriend's older sister, who lives in another state, came to visit and stayed at the house with us. This was my first time meeting her, and I thought she was very nice, but I didn't get to know her too well. 2 days ago, my boyfriend and I were out running errands together, and his sister called him to ask when he would be back so she could borrow his car to go hang out with her friends in a town about an hour away. He told her it would be a while, and she then asked if it was okay to borrow my car. My boyfriend asked me, and I told him I was not comfortable with that, and to tell her no. My boyfriend did tell her no. I heard the entire conversation. Well, a few hours later, my boyfriend and I got home, and my car was gone. I was shocked, and my boyfriend was confused. When we went into the house, his dad informed us that he gave my boyfriend's sister the spare key to my car that was in the lockbox because she said she needed to go somewhere. My boyfriend told him that she asked to drive my car and that we had told her no, so he didn't understand why she was allowed to take it, and his dad said that since my boyfriend helped pay for the car, that it therefore was partly his, which meant his sister had the right to drive it as well. I was absolutely livid, and I couldn't believe that anyone would do something like this. My name is the only name on the title, insurance, etc., as I am the sole owner. My boyfriend told his dad to call her and tell her to bring my car back immediately, and she said that she would be home soon. After 2 hours, I called the police and reported my car stolen, because I was worried that if it got damaged or something, then I would be forced to pay the repairs, even though it wasn't my fault. My boyfriend's dad and his sister were really upset about this, and they accused me of trying to get them arrested. They're now demanding that I apologize to them and tell the police it was all a misunderstanding. But I really don't want to, because I feel that they tried to take advantage of me. My boyfriend agrees with me, but even he said that he thinks calling the police to report the car as stolen may have been going too far. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She straight up stole your car. If she had gotten arrested, she'd have no one to blame but herself. Also, considering what a jerk your boyfriend's dad is, you should probably look into moving out as soon as you can. Not the jerk. She asked to borrow your car and you said no. She took the car despite you saying no. She stole your car. You reported her for stealing your car because, again, she did. Don't back down, or I predict this sort of thing will happen more in the future with your sister-in-law and father-in-law. You want this price? You got it. Years ago, I worked as an assistant manager for a retail store in art supplies. My store was in a very affluent area, and we got loads of bored housewives who had dropped $500 because they wanted a hobby. So one year, the company offered a one-day-only coupon for Black Friday. The store was swamped. Saturday was swamped. Sunday was swamped. I'm running a register and trying to get people through as rapidly as I can when she arrives. We'll call her Debbie. Debbie, throwing 3 bags full of merchandise on my counter. I want to return all of this stuff and rebuy it. Me. Okay, can I ask why? People sometimes did this because they had used the wrong payment method or something, but I needed to verify. Debbie. I bought all of this stuff on Friday at the store 1,500 miles away, and that tax rate is higher. So I want to return all of it and buy it here to pay lower taxes. Now hurry up. I've been driving all day and I'm tired. This is going to be a pain on a very busy day over what comes out to be about $2.50. I confirm with the other manager who agrees this is ridiculous, but we just need to do it. So I start a return, but the totals don't match up, so I have to call and talk to the on-call support rep. He tells me I can only refund my state's tax and not the other amount. The solution is to manually adjust the prices until the tax and totals match. As I'm doing this, Debbie is complaining about how she's tired from driving. I'm taking too long. Her dog, her feet, her back, whatever. But eventually, I get everything balanced and process her return. Okay, the return has been processed. It's about time. You'd be done already if you weren't so stupid. Now, I want to buy it all again. Cue Malicious Compliance Part 1. The thing about art supplies is they can be small and in multitudes. And that's what she'd purchased. Individual pencils, brushes, pastels, sheets of paper, etc. Sure thing, ma'am, but I want to be absolutely certain I ring everything up right, since I'm dumb. So, with a sweet smile, I take everything out of the bags and ring them up one by one. Of course, some stuff doesn't scan, so it has to be looked up. As I go along, she's getting more and more agitated. The insults get more and more frequent, and now everyone in the other lines are glaring at her. At last, everything is rung up and I give her the total. Part 2. Remember that coupon from the beginning of the story? The code has been pulled from the system, so her new total, with a reduced tax rate, is significantly higher than the old one. Debbie loses it and starts screeching. It's not even words at this point, just noise. Sorry, ma'am, but it looks like you used our exclusive coupon on Friday. Unfortunately, that coupon is no longer valid. Your new total will be this amount. She kept screaming, but eventually paid, snatched her items, and left. It was a good day to be retail. Am I the jerk for calling the cops on my neighbor after they took a package off my porch? I, 38 female, live alone in the house I grew up in. It was left to me by my mother after she passed away 10 years ago. About 4 years ago, a couple about my age moved in next door, and we've pretty much been at odds since day one. There have been numerous times and issues that we've disagreed on. I have 3 cats that I sometimes let out into my backyard. My neighbors have a dog that would jump the 5-foot chain link fence separating our yards to chase my cats. I told my neighbors that if I caught their dog doing it again, I would call the cops. They actually had the audacity to ask if I would be willing to split the cost of a taller privacy fence instead of, training your dog not to jump the fence. Obviously, I refused, as I wasn't the one causing the problem, and the fence is technically on their property anyway. They ended up putting in a taller fence. Then they asked me to split the cost of taking down an ash tree that was on their property. It had become infested with some sort of bugs that killed the tree, and dead limbs were falling on their driveway. They had the city come out, and the survey guy said the tree was actually about 10% on my property. I told them the tree was theirs, and if they want it down, they'll have to pay for it, because I don't have a problem with it. Needless to say, we're not friends. They've also thrown some loud, late-night parties that included bonfires and loud music that I had to call the cops for as well. I am currently out of town visiting family for a couple of weeks. I have a friend who comes over to my house every day to check on my cats and check for mail and packages. I have medication for my cats that are delivered regularly. I get a notification the other day that some packages were delivered, so I texted my friend to let them know. But before my friend could get there, I got a notification from my Ring doorbell. I pulled up the live feed and saw my neighbor on my patio. I asked him what he was doing, and he said a package of theirs got delivered to my house by mistake, so he was just grabbing it. I told him to leave and that my friend would bring over his package when she comes over. He said he's not waiting for that and tried to leave. I told him if he takes a package from my porch, I'm calling the cops. He shoved the package in front of the camera and said, "That's my name and my address. I'm taking my package." Then he walked away. So I called the police and told them that he stole a package from me and I have video proof. They said they would investigate. When my friend got there a little later, the police were talking to my neighbors. The police must have left while she was checking on my cats because when she went to leave, it was just my neighbors outside. The husband yelled at her to tell me that I'm a huge jerk and that I need to take the police off of speed dial and let them deal with more important issues instead of using them as my own personal problem-solving service. You're the jerk. I get the fence thing. You could have pitched in on the tree just to chill things out. Calling the police about the parties without talking to them about it first is a very jerk move. If it was his package and it had their name and address on it, calling the cops on them was also a jerk move. You are officially a bad neighbor now. You're the jerk. They sound like absolutely awful neighbors, and under any circumstances, I'd side with you in a second. But you called the cops and accused them of stealing their own package. They didn't steal from you. They fetched something that belonged to them off your porch. And while yes, I suppose they were trespassing, if you get medication delivered, then you know that sometimes packages can't wait, and perhaps this was a situation like that, and it doesn't sound like you cared to listen to anything they had to explain. If you want to be seen as the better person than your jerk neighbors, then you have to actually be the better person. Sign to continue lease. This starts when my now wife and I decided to move in together and rent a house. We were in our early 20s. It was our first time renting, and we had fairly low income, so our options were pretty limited. Luckily, we found a place that was in a less desirable area, but had recently had some basic renovations. We signed a lease and life went on. Our first 12 months went by with a rental inspection from the agent every 3 months or so. Never got any feedback, and being new to renting, figured everything was okay. We had a few items that needed repairing in that time, so I met the landlord and got his details for organizing repairs. He seemed like a decent bloke, probably early 40s, reasonably handy, and did some repairs himself. The first year went by, the lease came to an end, they increased the price, and we signed on for another 12 months. Then it happened. About 2 months later, the agent came to inspect along with the landlord's wife. The wife turned her nose up at absolutely everything and made a number of insulting comments about our furniture when she thought I couldn't hear. We got an inspection report after that, and it gave us a huge list of items to rectify and 2 weeks to do it, or they'd initiate proceedings to evict us. Naturally, after never hearing any feedback from any other inspections, we were shocked. The items were mostly minor nitpicks, with the worst things being to move our cats outdoors, clean the oven, and spray the weeds on the path in the backyard. We were fine copying it on the chin and doing what they asked, except for the cats. Initially, when signing the lease, it said no pets, but we requested and got acceptance for our indoor-only cats. It was noted on the lease, but not on the copy I had. I was kicking myself for not having it in writing and knew I had no chance if they wanted to push the point. So I called the landlord rather than talking through the agent. He explained that tenants in the other house they owned had been using it as a trap house, skirt, and the agents had never picked up on it. So when they found out, his wife insisted on going along to our inspection, hence why we got a bad report. I talked it out with him, and although he was very patronizing towards me, He agreed we could keep the cats inside as long as we kept everything clean and the next reports went fine. So we did as they asked, and they increased the inspections from once every 3 months to once a month, which is the minimum period they're allowed. We had a list of things to fix after every inspection. It made our lives horrible. We felt like intruders in our own home. We grew to hate living there, and it put a strain on our relationship. Luckily, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, my father passed around this time, so I ended up with inheritance money from his super fund and the sale of his house. My wife and I used the inheritance as a deposit to buy a house of our own, sorted out a loan agreement, and found a place that we liked. Now this is where I finally got my chance to repay them for making us feel like indentured servants that only existed to vacuum carpets and scrub walls in our home. By some miracle of luck, I negotiated the settlement date for our new house to be 1 week before our lease was due to end. This meant that we wouldn't have to break contract and be stuck footing the bill while they found new tenants. Better yet, they sent me a letter saying our lease was due to end and included a new lease agreement with a large jump in rent. The letter said we had to either sign the new lease and send it back to them by a date that was 2 weeks before end of lease, or consider the contract ended, move out by the end of the lease term, and hand over the keys. It said nothing about telling them we didn't want to renew the lease, so I didn't. I didn't want them booking open inspections and intrude further on our lives to show the place to new tenants, and decided they didn't deserve extra notice. The days ticked by, a couple weeks went past, and my wife and I were busy getting ready to move. I didn't get contacted by the agent again until my phone rang 1 week after the new paperwork was due, literally the day before we were moving out. It was the agent, of course. They greeted me nicely and said it was just a reminder that we needed to sign the new lease and get it back to them. I told them, "Oh, we aren't signing it. We bought a house and we're moving out tomorrow." The other end of the line went dead silent for a good few seconds while my face got stuck in a grin. The agent quietly asked why we hadn't told them, and I said the paperwork only said to let them know if we were extending the lease, nothing about moving out, so I assumed they knew. She said goodbye pretty quickly, and the panic in her voice was glorious. She was done for, and she knew it. I wish I got to hear more of the fallout, but my wife and I moved out, cleaned the house over the remaining week, and I handed the keys over. They never booked any open inspections in that final week, so the house sat empty for a while, waiting for new tenants, and the landlords missed out on some rent payments. We also checked the listings and saw they advertised it at a lower price than what they were going to gouge us for. As a bonus, a couple days after the lease ended, the agent called me and said our contract stated that we had to have the carpet steam cleaned and they were going to take the cost from our bond. I told her we had had them steam cleaned, and she said we didn't. The carpet smelled like garbage. After me telling her again that we had, she demanded a copy of the receipt. I emailed it through and never heard from them again. I didn't mention that there was a cavity under the house and the couple bags of rubbish I chucked under there as we were moving out because the bins were full. I guess the floor wasn't airtight. Am I the jerk for not wanting to share a room with my little brother? When I, 19 female, left for college last year, my parents gave my room to my little brothers, who are 6 and 3. My sister, who's 14, has her own room. I came back from college for the summer, and I'm probably going to be taking a gap year as well. I was put back in my old room, and I'm sharing it with my 6-year-old brother. My 3-year-old brother is sharing with my sister. It's been horrible. I have no privacy at all. My brothers get up at 7 a.m., come into our room, flip the light on, and start playing and fighting at full volume. I can't tell them to leave because it's their room. My mom and sister also come in at all hours of the day without knocking to put laundry or toys away and leave the door wide open. I don't have a car, and my parents only have one right now, so I haven't gotten a summer job yet. I have nowhere else to go all day, so I have my AirPods in most of the day to spare my sanity and drown out the constant fighting and noise, which also upsets my mother. The 6-year-old is out of control as well. He bullies everyone and gets away with little to no consequences. I tell him to get out of my stuff, and he bops me and runs away. He picks the bathroom lock and bursts in laughing. A 6-year-old already knows how to pick the lock? It's going to be a really good criminal one day. Whenever I speak up about these things, I get told that I'm insulting my mom's parenting, that I'm ungrateful for having a place to stay, and that I can't make any demands because I don't pay rent. I've been kicked out for a night before. My mother insists that I must hate my brother and reads into almost everything I do or say as a direct attack against him. She says that I want to paint him as a little villain and myself as a victim. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to share a room with him? Edit. I'm taking a gap year because I was paying for college by myself and can't afford it anymore. College is not just a free escape from my situation, and I'm not acting rich or spoiled by taking a gap year. I literally cannot afford it. Edit 2. I'm not asking them to rearrange the rooms or force all 3 siblings in one room. I'm not sure where in my post people are reading that. I'm being told that I'm ungrateful for not being happy being woken up by screams at 7 a.m., having the bathroom lock picked, and getting bopped by the 6-year-old. That is what I have a problem with. The people calling you the jerk are wild, not the jerk. Why aren't the 2 boys sharing a room? It would probably be much better if you were sharing a room with your sister. Also, your brother picks the lock? That's unacceptable in my opinion. Maybe you could team up with your sister and demand to share with her if she's unhappy too. There's not really a lot you can do with unreasonable parents. If they were really supportive, they would be driving you to a job or helping you get a ride. I'm guessing you live in a place with no public transport. Is there anyone you can ask to give you rides? I'm rooting for you, girl. You did nothing wrong. Am I the jerk for asking my boyfriend why he continues to pay for a child that isn't his, causing him to stop? We've got me, female 28. We've got my boyfriend, male 24. We've got Marco, boyfriend's biological son who's 2 years old. Polo, boyfriend's ex's child, no relation to boyfriend. And baby mama, my boyfriend's ex, the mother of Marco and Polo. I, OP, and my boyfriend have been seeing each other for only about 3 weeks, an admittedly short amount of time. The issue arises, however, with Polo, or the mother's expectations involving this kid. Polo is baby mama's first son and belongs to a deadbeat who lives out of town and has never been in Polo's life. Boyfriend spent about 3 years in Polo's life as a male adult figure while in a relationship with baby mama. Since they've split, he only sees Polo if he happens to be with Marco. Last night, baby mama contacted boyfriend and just told him, "You're taking the boys tonight," and this upset him. He said he struggles to care for 2 kids on his own and can't afford it. Confused, I asked, "I thought only Marco was yours." He confirmed only Marco was his, but he feels responsible for Polo as he was involved in his life from a young age. We discussed Polo's father, and I expressed my distaste for fathers who don't step up for their own kids, saying something along the lines of, "Why does his dad get no responsibility? He should be feeling this obligation, not you." Boyfriend then told baby mama that he will take Marco absolutely no issue, but said he's no longer going to be held responsible for Polo. Baby mama then basically said, "Cool, you're never seeing your son again," then made threats to call local organizations and has been blasting him on Facebook, calling him a deadbeat dad. I'm a childless woman. I won't even begin to pretend that I understand how complicated her situation must be. However, I am childless because I choose to be. Meaning I've never just been like, "Oops, I guess I'm pregnant," and have always found it fairly easy to just not get knocked up. So I have little sympathy for this next detail. She's currently pregnant with a 3rd kid from a 3rd baby daddy and has no idea who it is, and fully expects boyfriend to take care of the 3rd kid too. One conceived after they broke up by another man. It's clear to me that this woman will expect boyfriend to pay for and care for any kid she has now or in the future because he's a good man. To her, it has nothing to do with who was there for Polo or Marco. It's who will pay the child support. I feel like my comment was the final straw. I'm worried I should have kept my mouth shut, but I was genuinely just making light conversation. I never said, "You should do XYZ." I also really don't like that because he wouldn't take both of the kids, he wasn't permitted to see his son. Am I the jerk? Does everyone suck here? Should I have kept my comment to myself? Not the jerk. Are you prepared for this drama long term? If not, run. Now. It won't stop. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend could emotionally provide for Polo since he's been in his life, but financial obligation is to Marco. I would advise your boyfriend to get a custody agreement in place. Everyone sucks here. As a girlfriend of 3 weeks, it really wasn't your place to question how he chooses to structure his family. He'd been a father figure to that boy for 3 years. Withdrawing financial support and no longer seeing the boy who looked up to him as a dad so abruptly was a jerk move on your boyfriend's part. If he wanted to step back, there were ways to do that more gradually or less confusing to the poor kid. Obviously, the mom is the worst. 3 kids by 3 baby daddies, and expects one to support them all is crazy. She doesn't seem like a responsible woman. Am I the jerk for having a party at my apartment while a neighbor was studying? 2 weeks ago, a college student that lives in the apartment next door went door to door to every single apartment on our floor and the floors below us and above us to warn everyone that she has her college exams coming up and she's studying, so we better not have any parties until the end of May. She was somewhat kind, and having been through the stress of exams, I was compassionate and agreed that I won't have any loud parties, but I told her that my birthday is on May 5th, and on Friday night I'd probably have a couple of friends over and have some low music. She got annoyed when I told her that and told me that I better be quiet then. I didn't like her attitude, considering the fact that I was trying to be empathetic, and also told her I'd not do anything crazy for a party besides low music and some friends over. On Thursday evening, after I came back from work, I saw 2 notes. One on the building entrance and one on the elevator, which said, "I'm the college student from floor 7. Please refrain from any kind of social gatherings that might disturb my studying during this stressful time." I didn't give much thought to it. I wasn't planning on a party, as I said. On Friday night, I had my 3 closest friends come over. We didn't party, we just chilled at my apartment and had some low music, which barely could be heard in my own bedroom, let alone next door apartments. On Saturday morning, there was a note on the elevator once again, straight up naming me and saying, "OP from the 7th floor broke the agreement and had a social gathering on Friday night, completely disrespecting the stressful time I'm going through. She said she'd be discreet, but this is not enough. I could still hear some laughs and discussions because I had my windows and my balcony door open and disrupted my peace and focus. Let this be a lesson. The next time someone decides to disrespect stressful times like this, you will be called out." Certain neighbors defended me and said that the college girl was being unreasonable with her demands, but other neighbors believe I was a jerk and that I should go to a restaurant or a bar instead of having a gathering at my house. Not the jerk. It's completely unreasonable for her to ban other people from having pretty quiet social gatherings for 6 weeks. She wasn't even prepared to close her windows. She sounds unhinged, to be honest. Parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party to accommodate my spoiled younger brother. I'm 20, male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled. And he used that to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that weren't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away, which was a lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him, even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him the entire time of my 13th birthday, and even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she had noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out the candles. And because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents set me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and then they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. And all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people. But that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was canceled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents to other kids in my school, called them up or sent them Facebook messages basically saying, "What's wrong with you?" And suddenly, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it, and my brother thought it was hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day just to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PS4 game I'd been wanting at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he could have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely and took my little brother to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play place tube structure. And he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, then tried to run back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I didn't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party. And they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me at all and not my brother was still fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that and had a huge fit until my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they had raised my brother so spoiled because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental on our parents for not getting him a PS5. He's now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds, or maybe even thousands, in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me that they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. It took that many people calling them out before they did something? The relatives chastising them wasn't enough? It had to take a whole school and a small community? Dang. I fear the one day that your brother will be in jail. My brat stepdaughter is demanding I pay for her birthday dinner even though she hates me and won't allow me to attend. My wife has 3 kids, 2 sons who are 20 and 19, and a daughter who's 16 from her previous relationship. Their father was an addict, but now he's clean. He doesn't have custody, but does visit when he can. My stepsons and I are not close, but they've been respectful to me at least. My stepdaughter, who I'll call S, has not. She genuinely doesn't even like me. She refuses to talk to me. She doesn't want me attending her shows. She doesn't accept any gifts that I've given her, usually giving them away or tossing them in the trash. She doesn't listen to me if I'm the one enforcing rules when she isn't grounded. It has to be her mom who puts her foot down. She doesn't listen to me if I'm the one enforcing rules when she's grounded. It has to be her mom who puts her foot down. Her birthday was last week. She had testing that day. My wife wanted her birthday to be extra special because she was turning 16 and had good grades. S wanted to go to an expensive restaurant with her family. I was not allowed to come according to her, but she wanted me to give her mom the money to pay for it. I told her I would not pay. She got upset and told me it was the least I could do and how she asks for so little, but I stood my ground. Her mom took her to a less expensive restaurant. S is now upset with me. Her granddad is also upset with me, telling me I should have paid and that it was her 16th birthday that I ruined. My wife is on my side and says there's no winning with her. I know how important becoming 16 is, and I feel bad for not getting her a gift at all. So, am I the jerk? You sound completely insufferable. If all 3 of her kids don't like you, I'm sure they have their reasons. You acting immature by refusing to pay for her birthday dinner is just the icing on the cake. You are not entitled to attend her birthday events. I'm disappointed in their mother for being with someone who is as controlling and manipulative as you are. Don't be surprised when she leaves you for someone who respects her and her kids. I feel like there's more going on here than we're being told. I mean, she doesn't just dislike him, she actively hates him. And the sons don't seem to like him either. They're just more mature about it being older. So, what's the deal? Aw, widow baby is sad that his stepdaughter doesn't want him at her birthday dinner. Widow man gonna throw a fit now. How fragile your ego must be to pick a fight with a 16-year-old. If you can't handle being a stepdad, then quit wasting this woman and her family's time. Go become one of those crazy dog guys who copes with his loneliness by getting 2 big dogs and acting like they're your kids. Not the jerk. Bro, this is why you don't date single moms. If she was widowed and left behind, then that's one thing. But if she chose to leave her man the way it pretty much always happens, you can bet your butt that those kids are going to be taught to resent men, and they will take out that aggression on you. Any guys still getting into relationships with single moms these days, you honestly deserve what you're setting yourself up for. Life isn't like the romantic comedy movies you were fed your whole life. You don't even want to know the things I've seen, the things I've done, or the things I would do again if I had to. I wonder how many bodies this guy has buried under his house. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his stepdaughter? Please let us know. Listen, homeboy, you need to run and run fast. Are you really willing to deal with this brat for possibly the rest of your life? Cool it, Karen. People have been getting upset about the things you've been saying recently. I don't care. It's a free country. Am I the jerk for never helping my older siblings out and letting my brother and his family be homeless? My family is on a big divide about this, so I was hoping I could get an unbiased perspective. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, by far. I'm 22, female, and my husband is 26, male. My siblings are 30, female, 32, male, and 33, male. Between the 3 of them, they have a combined 14 kids. They all have multiple kids. None of them went to college, and they all work lower-paying entry-level jobs. I graduated last year. I started college in high school, and I work as a nurse. My husband works on planes, but I don't want to say what he does specifically. Our household income is about $200,000, and average where we live is about $80,000, I think. This is all relevant. My parents like to host big family functions for every holiday, and they bring the whole family together. Ever since I was a teenager, my siblings have always asked me for favors, mostly to babysit. I did it for a while when I was around 16, but quickly realized they didn't appreciate anything and there was nothing in it for me, so I stopped. For the past 6 years, I've had the "don't ask me for anything" stance, since my siblings are the type to ask for favors but never offer to help you when you need it. They always borrow money from our parents but never pay it back. My oldest brother is getting evicted and asked if him and his girlfriend and their 4 kids could stay with me and my husband. My husband and I own a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. I told him no because they have a habit of settling in somewhere and not paying rent and refusing to leave. They also let their 4 kids absolutely destroy every rental they live in, coloring on the walls, holes in the walls, etc. My brother and his girlfriend are upset with me and they blew up at me at my mother's birthday party last week. They're going to have to stay at a shelter and they're saying that it's my fault, but I think it's their own lack of responsibility. My other 2 siblings chimed in, agreeing with my brother, and they think I'm a jerk. I think that my siblings suck, and I don't want my house getting torn up by their heathens. Heathens. I know that if I let them move in, I'd end up having to evict them, and they wouldn't pay for anything at all. I think it's not fair that they always ask me for money because I make more money than they do. And they treat my husband and I like we're some kind of upper-class snobs because we worked hard and made good choices in life to be able to buy a house early. Am I the jerk for not helping my siblings? Specifically my brother, I guess? Update. I'm offering to pay for everyone to get a vasectomy or have their tubes tied this Christmas and giving my brother enough money to cover the Red Roof Inn for a week. That's it. All I'm doing for anyone, and they better not call me ever again because I'm not answering. Not the jerk. They don't pay the money they owe. They destroy other people's property. They also have parents and multiple other siblings. They have a history of not paying rent and having to be evicted. At this point, start asking why they're in a shelter and no one else is helping. Combined with all the siblings and parents, they can hustle and pay their rent on a new place. Again with the "I'm poor but I have 157 kids." Come on. If you're low on money, just have 1 or 2 kids so nobody starves or lives in shelters. Why do people put themselves in this position? So that others in the family can pay for theirs? These are not your kids. Your siblings are not your responsibility. They are adults and should take care of themselves. If they were sick or had an accident, then it would be one thing. But no, they just don't pay rent for a habit. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for snapping at my aunt who said I wasn't a real doctor? I, 35 female, am a plastic surgeon. I went through years of medical school and residency, but it was worth it. I originally started med school with the hopes of going into psychiatry, but surgery really interested me. The problem started years ago when I first told my family that I was going into plastic surgery because it was what interests me the most. My parents, siblings, and brother-in-law were all supportive, and whenever I felt like giving up, they were always there to push me. But a lot of my other family members weren't as supportive. My aunts always made snide comments about it, as well as my cousins, uncles, and grandparents on both sides. They were all happy when they knew I was in med school, but completely flipped when they found out I was pursuing plastic surgery. It annoyed me at first, but I learned to just move on from it. But recently, my cousin, 40 female on my dad's side, who's the daughter of the aunt who keeps making comments about my job, did a PLC on nursing and childcare, which didn't bother me. I couldn't care less what she does. But my aunt thought I should know everything that's happening with her daughter. Every time I see her, she goes on about how smart her daughter is and how amazing she is for doing a PLC in nursing and childcare. But the last time I saw her, she said something that really annoyed me. Me and my sister were over at her house because she had some hand-me-downs to give to my nephew. We were all eating when she said, "It's great that she's going into medical school." She's not. She doesn't even have the brains for medical school. "Maybe we can finally have a real doctor in the family." I sat there in silence for a second, thinking, what is she talking about? And then looked at my sister, who looked equally upset as me. I snapped back and said, "Her taking care of kids doesn't make her a doctor, and her knowing how to clean a cut doesn't either. She's not in medical school. She's too dumb for that. She wouldn't even last a week before dropping out." My aunt looked really upset and yelled at me for being rude, and then she told me I wasn't much of a doctor either. I yelled back at her that I went through years of medical school and residency, and that I'm a licensed doctor and surgeon, and that she doesn't know what she's talking about. My aunt started crying and left the room, so me and my sister just left. A few hours later, I got a text from my cousin calling me names for what I had said and for attacking her mom. I got more texts from my other family members, and it somehow traveled to my mom's side of the family as well. Majority of them are telling me to apologize for yelling at my aunt, but my immediate family, mom, dad, brother, sister, in-laws, girlfriend, they're telling me not to. Now I'm being shunned by both sides of the family, and they're all refusing to talk to me and won't even let me tell my side of the story. So, was I the jerk? Not the jerk. A lot of people have an out-of-date, Hollywood idea of what a plastic surgeon really does with medicine. They think you picked your specialty so you can get rich by serving wealthy, vain people. They forget about all of the other people that need reconstructive surgery because of accidents, fires, bacteria, etc. Your aunt sounds ignorant. OP. I feel like I should add that my attack on my cousin wasn't just something random. She's as bad as my aunt. She always makes comments about my job and other things in my life, and always has. She's rude to everyone in my family, and is just a generally bad person to be around. Also, before I got into med school, she'd go on about how you have to be really smart to get into it, insinuating that I wasn't smart enough. Everyone sucks here. Calling your cousin dumb and too stupid for school is absolutely the wrong tactic, even if you were insulted by her mother. There was cruelty in what your aunt said about you, but there was also cruelty in what you said about your cousin. You're the boss? Okay, you're the boss. I just found out my old boss was fired and remembered a story and thought I'd share this multiple malicious compliance with you guys. So back in 2021, I was working from home with a team of about 20 people in my department. To summarize, our job was to monitor credit cards. We worked pretty independently and efficiently, so the company to award this literally promoted the entire department and tripled our pay. And with this, they emphasized that we should be more independent, take more responsibility, and all of that, and everyone was super okay with it. But then, 6 months later, as every story on this sub goes, there was a change in management. The manager took a job at another bank, and our supervisor was fired for doing the deed in the company grounds. Pretty cool guy, but he made a terrible choice on where to do it. The new manager was pretty competent. As far as I know, she's still in the position. The problem was the new supervisor to our department, aka best friend of new manager. He came into the job knowing absolutely zero about what we did and immediately wanted to demand results. But then again, he knew nothing about what we did, so he would demand results in the wrong places. Always asking for overtime even when we didn't need it. Complaining about how we didn't use formal language on the group chat and so on. One relevant thing he learned on his first week is that I was supposed to take his job before he came along. My old supervisor was training me to take his job because he was about to leave anyway. And everyone on my team came to me when they needed something, and I would always help them. But he was quick to remind me, as we hopped on a call, that he was the boss. He told me if anyone asked me for something, to tell them to go to him. I said okay. This backfired very quickly, since he didn't know anything about what we did. He didn't know how to help all the people coming to him. After a few days, they stopped asking him since he could never help them and came back to me again. Then again, he told me to hop on a call with him, and his new strategy was to, whenever someone asked him for something, he would then just ask me. Again, I said okay. After a month of this, our production was at the lowest it had been in 3 years, but he was happy since everyone was going to him and getting, albeit longer responses. So he had to look somewhere else to cause intrigue. He started to complain when people took their breaks. Our shifts were 8 hours a day with 3 breaks, 2 10-minute breaks, and an hour break. Everyone had their time to go on these breaks, but since it didn't impact our job in the slightest, everyone just went when it was most convenient for them. All my colleagues were complaining to me that he was making a big deal of when they took their breaks. He went on a 10-minute rant on why I shouldn't take my 1-hour break 30 minutes before I was supposed to. I told him it was because I went to a bakery close to my house every day because I was too tired to make dinner and had to take my 30-minute break early, otherwise it would be closed. He said if I wanted to go to the bakery, I should go on my own personal time when I'm off the clock. I said okay, but what he said gave me an idea for me to go on my own personal time. As per company code, besides the 1 hour and 20-minute break, you have up to 1 hour of personal break per day, in which you can do whatever you need to for whatever personal reason. I told my colleague this, and every day, 1 hour before my 1 hour break, I would take 1 hour of personal break to go to the bakery and buy lunch. My colleagues would do similar things that they needed to do during the time they were used to taking their breaks. Well, 2 months later, the entire department was terminated since we weren't bringing in enough revenue to the company. Unfortunately, this supervisor wasn't let go until last week, and the department he took over also was terminated. And another disclaimer to anyone worried about 20 people losing their jobs. We have a pretty niche set of skills, and everyone quickly found jobs of similar paying wages. No one was sad to be fired. We were actually pretty happy. A few even resigned before the ship sunk. Am I the jerk for telling my 12-year-old niece to not make life any harder for her mom? I, 40 female, have a 12-year-old niece and an 8-year-old high-needs nephew. They are my sister's kids. She's 37. My niece's birthday was yesterday, and she has cupcakes ready to bring to her school. My nephew doesn't sleep well at all, and both his parents are up with him a lot of the night and very sleep deprived. Nephew snuck downstairs yesterday morning before everyone was up and ate most of the cupcakes. Parents forgot to lock the cabinet. Like I said, they're very sleep deprived. Brother-in-law works about 60 hours a week as a physician, and sister is a stay-at-home mom. My niece called me from her cell phone. We're very close, and I only live 5 miles away. And with her being hysterical, I could also hear nephew having a meltdown in the background and his parents trying to calm him down. She was understandably upset because it was her birthday and she was bringing cupcakes to the class. Neither of her parents would be able to replace the cupcakes on time as sister had to take nephew to a doctor's appointment. They would have been there a number of hours, and her dad had several surgeries lined up that day and couldn't get out of work. We live in a rural area that doesn't have Uber Eats or DoorDash. My partner, 42 female, owns the local bakery and was able to go in early to make impromptu cupcakes for my niece, and my partner would deliver it to her school. I too couldn't get out of work. So I told my niece not to worry, that I would take care of it, but to please lay off her parents, that their lives are hard enough with her brother, that she shouldn't make things any more difficult for them because they're so burnt out and overwhelmed. She got angry with me because she said her parents were careless in forgetting to lock the cabinet. I told her it was an honest mistake that anyone could make. My partner thinks I shouldn't have said that because she's just a kid. This is true, but her parents are literally hanging on by a thread, and I'm trying to help the only way I know how. Her parents thanked us profusely for coming to the rescue with her cupcakes and offered to pay, but we declined, saying it was on the house. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. My experience is that when a high-needs kid eats up all of the energy and time and attention, the other kid is told to stuff their feelings down at that age, and it emerges somewhere else in life. For a couple of my students, it ended very, very badly. Her feelings are valid. She's too young to get over it for her parents like an adult. I agree with your partner. I don't know what the high needs are, but you might cover for the parents sometime so that they can sleep. Help them find a respite caregiver. Take the niece out, away from the chaos. Guy tries to sell house from under my family. Gets his just desserts. This happened back when I was a kid. My family was looking for a large house and found the perfect one back in the early 2000s. When my dad talked with the owners, they had agreed to getting some plumbing fixed on the house before we moved in if we moved all of their stuff into the 2-car garage, so it would be easier for them to move. There was also several things to be repaired, a pool to clean, and a ton of landscaping to be done. My dad did the repairs and used his army of offspring to do all the landscaping, pool work, etc. The house was looking amazing compared to before, and we were a week from moving in. Now, I to this day do not know why my dad did this, but he had paid a cash deposit. There was no paper trail, and the owners decided to take advantage of this. When it got to be a few days before we moved in, the owners told my dad they weren't moving their stuff out of the garage or doing the plumbing fixes that were needed to use any of the bathtubs or showers in the house. He could deal with no garage and pay for the plumbing fixes, or he could buzz off. No refund of deposit if he didn't like it. They even said they were thinking of moving someone else in because the house value was more with all of the fixes we had already done. My father asked to turn in the keys we had been given the next morning because this was all told to him at 8 p.m. on a weekday. With no paperwork yet signed, there was nothing attaching my dad to the house and no cameras or security system. He had just been done over by a few $1,000s by the owner, and it was maybe 2 weeks until Christmas. His gift that year was going to be giving each of us kids our own rooms for the first time. Cue revenge. He brought all of us kids over to the house for a little party. Each kid was given their own special bit of destruction. Someone was shoveling sand into the pool. My brother with anger issues was told to punch out every hole he had patched up in the walls. The smaller kids were told to rock the banister on the stairs until it broke. I was told to rip out the landscaping we had done and make a path of it all over the stairs. Every single thing we had fixed or improved, taken back by very creative and energetic kids. While all of this happened, my dad and stepmom went through everything in the garage from the owners and took anything they could gift to family, pawn, or sell. There were high-value collectibles, jewelry, and a computer that my dad gave us for Christmas. The next day, my dad told the owners he had put the keys in the garage with its door open that night for them. He then unplugged the phone, and we never heard from those people again. Was it legal? No. Not on either end. Did we have a good Christmas? Yes. Was it fun destroying the place? Yes. I actually did a very tastefully done carpet of hedge branches, torn out flowers, and some of the sand and pool gravel on the actual carpet of the house. How blind are you? I am legally blind. I have no sight in one eye and very little sight in the other, but I can see a little. I walk with a sight cane, but generally do need some help to get around. I was at the airport in Cincinnati, Ohio, returning from a business trip, and I asked the person helping me to take me to a Starbucks since I was desperate for caffeine. She put me in line, then she said she would be back in 20 minutes. So I'm standing in line when this woman starts creeping on my right, then a little more, and a little more. She was trying to pull cutesies on me. Oh, I didn't think so. So I slyly slid my cane over to my right, effectively preventing said cutesies. She realizes she's been caught and huffs a bit, having her plan of cutting in front of an under-caffeinated blind person at 6:45 a.m. effectively thwarted. I get my drink and I take a seat. Then Cutsy Carol sits down at my table and waves her hand in front of my face, and we have the following exchange. Karen: So, are you blind or what? Me: Pardon? Like, how much can you see? Are you faking? Just how blind are you? Me: I mean, I saw enough to know you were attempting to cut in front of a blind person. So, you can see. Waves her hand in my face again. Can you see this? Why do you need a cane if you can see? Is it macular degeneration or what? Me: Ma'am, it's too early for this. Please leave my table. I don't owe you an explanation or any part of my medical history. I'm just trying to enjoy my drink in peace while I wait for my guide. Jeez, I was just asking. Huffs and leaves for parts unknown. Thank goodness. I don't know why people see someone who's disabled and feel entitled to their story or their medical devices. I have had people grab my cane and pull me where they want me to go. Parents who think it's cute to let their kids grab my cane. It's not. Last 4th of July, a random woman saw me walking with my family and grabbed my arm to drag me over to her son, who had recently lost his eyesight, so I could tell him my story. Didn't ask, just grabbed. My daughter let her know how horribly inappropriate that was, and this woman was super offended because she was just trying to help her son adapt to his new reality. Like, she thought I owed that to her by daring to be blind. Disabled people are not sideshows. We are just trying to live our lives just like you are. Am I the jerk for complimenting a friend of mine, making my fiance jealous? I, 29 male, have known my good friend Sarah, who's also 29, since we were both 7 years old. We grew up together and we were very close. Sarah is very beautiful and stylish. She's working as a bridal consultant and a stylist, and she's into the fashion industry, so her sense of style is immaculate. My fiancée, Jane, who's 27, is a lawyer. She has a more casual style, while Sarah has a more glamorous style, and I realize how both of their careers and lifestyles also affect their sense of style. For the record, I adore my fiancée. I've been with her since she was 20 and I was 22. Proposed to her a year ago, and she's the nicest and most supportive woman I've ever met. So before anyone says I might be attracted to Sarah over my fiancé, remember this. Sarah is a good friend, but we are not compatible to work as a couple at all. Her life goals do not align with mine, and her lifestyle is exhausting for me. While Jane and I, on the other hand, are compatible in every aspect. Sarah is what we'd call conventionally attractive, while Jane has a more unique kind of beauty. Sarah is the kind of woman who will make everyone turn their heads and just stare at her whenever she enters a room. She's always been like that. Jane didn't seem to mind at first, but later on she started getting bothered whenever I over-complimented Sarah, but still didn't make a big deal out of it. A friend of ours got engaged over the weekend and had this engagement party with his new fiancée. Sarah was invited and so were we. As always, once Sarah walked in, everyone turned to look at her. It was one of the best outfits she had worn and one of the best hairstyles she had had. I went to greet her and I couldn't stop complimenting her all night long because she truly outdid herself. I noticed Jane sitting alone later and I went to ask her what was wrong. She replied that I'm ridiculous for acting as if I didn't know already. Then my friend's new fiance and my friend pulled me to the side and told me they had spotted my fiance crying in the hallway a while ago, and she told them that she feels like she's never going to be as good and pretty as Sarah in my eyes, and she feels humiliated and jealous. My friend's fiance also told me what Sarah wore to the engagement party was not appropriate, but she wouldn't say anything because she doesn't want to stir drama, and that at some point, Sarah needs to stop trying to have all the attention to herself, constantly trying to overshadow everyone. Am I the jerk? You went to greet her and you couldn't stop complimenting her all night long because she truly outdid herself? What the heck? You couldn't stop? Yeah, you're the jerk. Even worse, OP's fiance has already commented that OP overcompliments his friend. OP, why can't you just zip it with the compliments for women that aren't your fiance, full stop? How other women look shouldn't be important enough for you to compliment them all night long, particularly in front of the woman you claim to love and want to marry. You're the jerk. Complimenting someone else, regardless of gender, shouldn't be a problem. I like getting compliments from my male friends, and I don't mind at all when my husband compliments his female friends. I feel like if OP had just said, "Hi, you look great tonight," to his friend and moved on, it wouldn't have been a problem for anyone. But it sounds like he spent the evening blatantly fawning over her, which I suspect was uncomfortable for everyone, including his friend. My dude, I can hear you salivating from over here. Did you ever consider maybe don't do that to your fiance? Sarah's beautiful, stunning, glamorous, we get it, but you can just close your mouth about it. At near 29, you're old enough to know that what you say has a purpose and has an impact. So what exactly is the purpose of you raving about Sarah's looks? Why do you do that? What do you think is the impact of doing that? Like, this is not hard to figure out, bro. You're the jerk. Exactly. What's the purpose of that? Does she not know she's attractive? Do you need to tell her? You're the jerk. I hope your fiance gets away from being someone's second choice. Nice and compatible, but not awesome. You're the jerk. No wonder your fiance feels down in the dumps about herself. Did you fawn all over her like you did your friend? Did you tell her she looked beautiful? Anything? It's also interesting you didn't notice she was upset to the point of crying until someone else had to clue you in. You were too busy obsessing over another woman. You're the jerk. You don't even realize that you're attracted to your best friend and making your fiance's self-esteem plummet. The only reason you should shower someone with compliments is if they are the center of attention and you're focused on them, like weddings where you compliment the bride and groom. You don't spend hours in front of the bride complimenting the maid of honor. My theory is that you think your friend is out of your league and you are settling. Your fiance deserves better. The fact the only reason you and Sarah aren't compatible is her lifestyle proves it. You never once said, "I don't feel attracted to her." You said she's too high maintenance, basically. Also, reading the outfit she chose, Sarah is also a massive jerk. She wanted to upstage the bride and groom. Who does that? Don't want to fix the elevator? Meet the stinky card. While I was earning my bachelor's in chemistry, I worked for the university's hazmat department. My job involved inspecting labs, disposing of old chemicals, occasionally giving people the "you've got to be kidding me" stare, and plenty of other fun activities so our esteemed researchers can figure out science in a safe environment. Quick description of the campus. One building was a more recent construction. It has 2 wings and was shaped like the vaguely S-shaped Tetris block no one loves. The east wing was full of laboratories, 3 full stories and basement of labs, cancer research, Alzheimer's research, deadly banana fungus research. The place housed the most prestigious staff of brilliant minds trying to solve the world's problems. The west wing housed the administrative offices of the university, accountants, bookkeepers, and assorted bean counters, HR and desk jockeys, all the way up to the dean. People who, unlike their eastern counterparts, seem to be the cause of many baffling questions like, why are our emergency expenditures still not approved? Why is there a problem with my payslip again? And why is there so much red tape? That building was connected to the rest of the campus via underground tunnels, accessed via the basement, and had 1 elevator per wing. Now, the thing is that the loading dock is in another building. So when the labs receive their orders of chemicals, they grab their cart and scoot down the tunnel to the arrivals, load up their cart, and carry it back to the lab to be safely restored, on penalty of getting the "are you kidding me" stare or a long lecture by my boss. Important point. The rules prohibit using the stairs with hazmat. Elevator only. It's safer this way. So one day the science wing's elevator breaks down. I send a request to have it fixed. At least 4 lab employees also send it. We received the response that we all should use the administrative elevator. I reply that since one of the labs is on a sort of half floor, the only way to reach it is the science wing elevator or a flight of stairs. Highlighted the risk of falling while carrying heavy boxes of chemicals in the stairs, or how there was no way to safely carry heavy gas cylinders up those stairs. They were having none of that. Use the administrative wing elevator. They will call to have the elevator fixed, but it is considered low priority. I showed the reply to my boss. He was the type of guy for who workplace safety is no laughing matter, and I was expecting him to reply with a strongly worded email and about 4 to 5 paragraphs from various workplace safety laws text. Instead, he had a strange smile. Oh, don't worry, Rum. It'll soon be a priority to them. 2 days later, my boss comes in. Rum, don't forget the biohazard truck comes tomorrow. You should collect the wastes from the labs. Oh boy, biohazard day. The day where I get to leave my office, visit every lab in the university, jokingly saying, bring out your dead, as I enter and have a chat with teachers, classmates, and various lab aides. I put on my lab coat and protective goggles. And don't forget, the elevator in the science wing is broken. You have to go through the administrative wing. Oh, now I get it. See, when the pencil pushers decided that fixing the elevator wasn't a priority, they didn't realize that I would be walking around with a cart filled with containers bearing a bright yellow biohazard logo and returning with them full of old petri dishes full of culture medium. And any biochemists or microbiologists worth their lab coat will tell you, culture medium stinks. It smells like regurgitated baby food left out in the sun. So here I am, walking in front of all those nice offices and meeting rooms, the clack, clack, clack of my cart full of biohazard announcing my arrival, and the smell of death following me. Yes, I made sure that all bags were properly sealed, but it's one of those powerful smells that just doesn't care about that. The nice lobby outside the elevator where people wait to meet the dean. Hello, sorry about the smell. The meeting room with the open door. Sorry about the noise. Can I get an update on that elevator? People walking down the hall in their office suits. Wow, they sure do seem a bit nervous seeing a guy in a lab coat driving around containers with the biohazard symbol on them. Should I tell them it's harmless unless you're severely immune compromised? Nah. Oh, and my cart has only room for 3 of those containers, plus the new ones I leave to replace the full ones. Biohazard day is about 2 to 4 trips per floor. After the second of such biohazard day, we got a message stating that the elevator will be fixed over the weekend. My Karen neighbor says she's entitled to my yard while I'm away. I'm 27, female, and I live in a rather nice neighborhood near the middle. My neighbor, entitled mom, has a large dog and a rather destructive son who we'll call entitled kid. I have a pretty good financial situation, and I live alone because the house was passed down to me in the will. It's a pretty big yard compared to Karen's yard, which is almost half its size. I have no gate for the yard, leaving it open for any pets or animals to come right in. I work from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., so I'm gone for a long while during the day. Karen is the type to do a lot of gardening, so she doesn't like entitled kid in the yard with all the tools. One day, she asked me if I would allow her son to play in my yard while I was at work. It couldn't cause any harm, could it? I accepted, but I did tell her that her son would have to be gone by the time I was back, and all went well until I got my first cat. Keep in mind, entitled kid would always bring the dog over with him to play. I named my new Ginger cat, well, Ginger. Ginger loved to bask out in the sun with the entitled kid and the dog, until one day I found she wasn't outside. In fact, she was inside with a bite mark. I rushed her to the vet immediately, where she was treated and wore some sort of bandage wrap around her waist for the next week or so. I checked the cameras, only to see entitled kid trying to move Ginger out of her general spot so that he could sit there, and she swiped at him, scaring him off. It seemed that entitled kid's dog did not take kindly to this, and the mark was not a bite mark, but a swipe from the dog. I presented this info to Karen, who denied it and said, "He's just a kid, and Ginny is fine." I reminded her that it was Ginger, then told her that neither her son or dog were allowed on my property again. She threw an absolute tantrum and told me that they should be entitled to the yard while I was away, because, after all, you can't just let it go to waste. I then reassured her of my decision, to which she said word for word, Ma'am, you need to leave. I'm so confused. I'm considering my options, and I think small claims court is a bit too much for this. What am I supposed to do? Edit. Yes, I did see all of your comments about liability. I'm currently trying to find out the best kind of fence I can get regarding the neighborhood HOA. As mentioned, I do have cameras, and I put up a no trespassing sign next to the mailbox. I did have her read and sign a contract stating that she or any other member of her family were to be allowed on my property, and if this happened, I would not be liable. Also, I will be able to sue her for trespassing, and recommended that she fill her kid in with this info. As you may expect, she threw a tantrum saying, "You need to get over it. It's just a cat. You don't even need the yard when you leave." Although I did get her to sign the contract at the end, even getting to watch the look on her face get more and more sour. Thanks for your advice, everyone. If they, the kid or the dog or the mom, come onto your property again, call the police. You have clearly stated that they are not welcome and they would thus be trespassing. Document the cat's injury and keep that information. Do not let them back on your property, especially not if the kid is unattended. Keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear? Got it. Years ago, I was a cook at a well-known fast casual restaurant known for their large burritos and charging extra for guac. I worked hard because the place was very understaffed given the number of customers that came in. Management was understanding when we had to cut corners to make sure people did not wait for food. One of the rules we had to follow before cooking the rice was to rinse the raw rice 3 times until the water runs clear. Vague? I know. How clear is clear? What if after 3 rinses, the water is not clear? 3 times and runs clear? Or 3 times or runs clear? Who knows? I did not ask. Most of the time, we would give the rice 1 or 2 rinses before throwing it into the cooker. Never had any problems with customers complaining about it, and we never ran out of rice. Since there were never any problems, management did not care, and everyone was happy. That is, until one day, Miss Manager decides it's time to enforce every single rule exactly. Not sure why. To get to the position she was in, she knew how to do all of the individual tasks in the kitchen, so she knew the rules. However, she did not know how to conduct the symphony of the dozens of simultaneous tasks at the speed and accuracy required to keep customers moving and to never burn anything. I did. She did not know which corners were okay to cut and which ones were not. I did. As I was getting ready for the busy shift, but the kitchen was not in busy mode yet, I'm rinsing rice and Miss Manager approaches me. "Make sure to rinse the rice until the water runs clear." I look at her and respond, "I always do." She knew I was lying, but she knew why. She knew that it would take longer to make the rice, but I was the only one who could make sure that rice never runs out. Her life would be horrible if we ran out of rice. She had a chance to let it go. She did not, though. "Mr. Cook, I know you don't follow that rule. Keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear, and before you put this rice on the cooker, come find me and show me that it runs clear." I looked at her with a straight face and replied, "Keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear? Got it." I begin. Fill the pot of rice with water, agitate the rice, pull out some perforated part of the pot, and dump out all of the cloudy water. After 3 times, the water is still resembling water skim milk. I look up. She's watching me. She asks, "Does that water look clear to you?" It was rhetorical. I see how it is. I start rinsing again. Satisfied, she walks away. I continue repeating the process. A while goes by, and yes, I am counting the number of times. The long grains of rice are breaking apart, and the entire pot is turning into a strange, mushy mixture of white rice. Given the time I'm taking on this dumb task, everything else that needs to get started in the kitchen is falling apart. Finally, Miss Manager appears in the kitchen again. "You're still rinsing rice?" The timing was perfect. I dump out the water in front of her and ask, "Does that water look clear to you?" As I dump out the precursor to slightly watered down horchata, she softly says, "No." I step away from the sink. "How many times do you think I've rinsed this rice?" I ask. 7? She answers. "No, try 37. I wasn't joking. I've rinsed this rice 37 times and the water is not running clear to your satisfaction. Should I continue? She looks at the rice, knows it's unusable, and that she has lost the fight. On one hand, she can't tell me to keep going because the ground up rice was only a few rinses and a cook away from becoming grits. On the other hand, she cannot tell me to stop rinsing because then she would be in violation of the sacred rice rinsing commandment. Additionally, she cannot fire me, otherwise the store could not open. She scheduled me to work the entire day, and she sure knows that she could not do what I do in the kitchen. Fine, she relents. Get back in there and make sure we're ready when it's time to open. I laughed to myself as I went back to work. I win. Am I the jerk for wanting a week's vacation alone, away from my partner and kids? Me, 32 female, and my partner, 37 male, are in a disagreement. He thinks I'm selfish for considering this. I don't think I am. He suggested I post here to see what you all say. We've been together for 12 years. My partner has 2 responsibilities in terms of the house. He walks the dogs in the morning and he goes to work full-time 8 to 6. More often than not, he falls asleep at 8 p.m. He works in IT. We have 3 kids who are 7, 4, and 2, and I'm fully responsible for their care as well as every household duty, laundry, cooking, cleaning. I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also self-employed. So after I look after the kids all day, I then work for a couple hours on my laptop. My birthday is coming up. I asked my partner what he would think if I booked myself a vacation for a week on my birthday and went out on my own. If he could use his paid time off to take time off to look after and spend the week with our 3 kids, taking them to school and taking care of the house. He told me I was selfish. It's selfish to want to go on holiday for a week for my birthday? He said yes. My partner hasn't done a load of laundry in the 10 years. He cooks dinner occasionally, 2 times a month. He doesn't hoover, mop, or mow lawns. I get it, he's tired and he works full-time, but I work too, and I don't feel appreciated. I just want a week where I don't have to placate a crying kid or stop the toddler from running into traffic or worry about everyone else's good time while sacrificing my own. The last time I spent time away from the kids and house was when we went out for dinner for his birthday in March, after they were asleep and I organized the babysitter. Oh, and my pap smear, which he tried to make me take the kids to, even though he was home. The holiday would be paid for entirely by me. He gets 28 days of paid time off, not including bank holidays. Last year, he lost 12 paid time off days because he didn't take them. We're in the UK. Am I the jerk? You're not a stay-at-home mom. You have a part-time job. Your division of home labor is insanely unbalanced, and all of it falls to you. Of course your husband refuses to let you take a holiday. He'd have to actually lift a finger to parent his own kids if you did. Please, for your own sake, book that holiday and inform him you will be going. Perhaps if he had to do a fraction of everything you'd done for years, he would finally see how unfair he's been to you. Not the jerk. I'm not sure you need a holiday as much as you need couples therapy, to be honest. This sounds like a hugely unfair setup, and no wonder you're feeling so burned out. He's not pulling his weight at all here. Sounds completely draining to be married to a partner who does so little, and apparently is willing to do so little more. Take your kids to your medical test? No thanks. I think you need to address that underlying issue. You're not the jerk for wanting the holiday, but it's a symptom of a much bigger problem. Not the jerk. Just the childcare you're doing is a full-time job with kids those ages. Added to that, you're doing all the housework, all of the cooking. 2 times a month is not frequent. Plus 2 hours of self-employment working from home. It sounds like you have multiple full-time jobs while he has 1. Consider pricing out what it would cost to have someone do your work full-time as an experiment. How much would it cost to hire a nanny for 3 kids of those ages full-time? How much would it cost to hire a maid to complete the house chores you do? How much would hiring a lawn service cost? How much would having a home cook or having meals delivered every day cost? Do you walk the dogs outside of the time he does in the morning? If so, add it to the list. Those are the costs of your labor. That's what the 2 of you save by you doing that work. There's a decent possibility those labor costs would cost more money than he makes, and the hours those people would need to work to complete the work you are doing easily total more than the hours he's putting in at the office and walking the dogs in the morning. This doesn't even include whatever you make at the work-from-home job you do after dinner. From someone who has walked a mile in both shoes, you're the jerk. I've been a stay-at-home parent and worked full-time, and the 9-to-5 job is way more exhausting. There's way more downtime in being a stay-at-home parent. Ask anyone who's done both which job they'd prefer to do, and your answers will be the same. He's pulling more of the load than you, and you think you deserve a vacation and he doesn't? You're a bad partner, and your selfishness will lead you straight into divorce. Am I the jerk for canceling a vacation because my wife can't pay her share after helping her adult son and ex-husband? My wife, 44 female, makes quite a bit less than me, 45 male, so our joint expenses are split 70-30. For the most part, things like vacations and where we bought a house are decided based on what she can afford. But there have been several times I've paid in full for vacations to places I really enjoy and wanted to share the experience with her. She has a 23-year-old son from her previous marriage. When she and I got together, I told her I wouldn't mind paying extra for things here and there until her son was 18 and working or in school, so she could take care of him. For the majority of our relationship, he has lived with his father. He decided against college or trade school and hasn't expressed any interest in starting to figure out a plan for the immediate future, let alone his life. He floats from job to job, and his father is pretty much the same since the kid graduated. Therein lies the problem. Every few months, they'll call her for a few $100s here, a few hundred there, $20 this week, $80 the next. Sometimes it's her son calling for help, sometimes it's her ex-husband. This has caused her to be short on funds for our plans, or things she volunteered to cover on more than one occasion. Her reasoning when it's her ex asking is that since their son still lives with him, she has to help. I get that to a point. We were supposed to go on a vacation later this month. Nothing major or fancy, but just some time away. We had agreed to split the cost, and all that was left to pay for were the hotels, rental car, and some reservations. Her ex-husband called needing help getting his car out of impound and getting caught up on rent. Their son hasn't been able to get to work without the car because he doesn't want to ride a bike or take the bus. Almost $5,000 later, they're set up, but my wife told me she can't pay for her portion of our vacation. So I told her I was canceling it. She called me a heartless jerk, that she's just taking care of her son, and we've been arguing over it. But my stance is this. They're both able-bodied adults that keep making a series of life decisions that keep them at a standstill, like quitting jobs over little things, smoking, going out. And her always digging them out of their hole is starting to impact our lives more and more, and I didn't sign up for that. Am I the jerk for canceling our vacation instead of just footing the entire cost myself? To clarify, she contributes 30% of her pay to our joint expenses, bills, utilities, emergency fund, retirement. 70% of her pay she keeps for her personal expenses and to spend or save how she wishes. Dates, vacations, and fun things we choose to do together are budgeted and planned based on what we can afford from our personal funds. Pool that money together, then pay together. Not the jerk. Why are you married to her though, since she clearly puts her ex and grown son before you and your marriage? She's enabling their financial irresponsibility, and that will never change. Seriously, this has been going on for more than 5 years. There's no reason for the ex or their son to change their patterns because she's enabling it. OP, your wife is reasoning that she has to give them money because she's taking care of her son. Can you get her into marriage counseling so she can understand that in fact she isn't helping her son? She's hurting him? He has the capability to work and support himself. He's choosing not to because he doesn't have to with her as his safety net. He's already 23. The window to retrain is closing rapidly, and soon he will be a copy of his dad. Her ex is not her responsibility under any circumstances. If he's careless and gets his car impounded, leading to his son not getting to work, that's an issue to solve between father and son. She does not need to fix this for them. Yes, they'll be mad, and they'll do everything they can to emotionally manipulate her. That's where the counseling comes in. She's going to need help to recognize how these patterns developed and what she's gaining emotionally from them in order for her to find the way to break the pattern. Or this for the rest of your life. Soon the son will get someone pregnant, and then what will she do? Not the jerk, but you need to do something fast. Am I the jerk for removing the fun stuff from my room so my stepsister wouldn't use it? My parents are divorced. I split my time 50-50 between both houses. My mom has been remarried for a number of years now and has 3 stepkids, 2 boys who are younger and a girl the same age as me. She and I got along so badly that the custody times were switched, so we were not in the house at the same time because we could not get along. It all started with her taking my favorite plush animal without permission and ruining it. The eyes were gone and it got soaked, which ruined the color. When I told her she shouldn't have taken it, it became her mission to take my stuff without asking and rarely had any consequences for it because I was told to share. Some of the stuff was fine, but other stuff got ruined too. When my mom told me that she would still sleep in the room after the change in custody when I wasn't there, I knew I did not want the important stuff left at my mom's, so I took it all to my dad's with me. I was 12 at the time. This was only discovered a few weeks ago. Apparently, dear old stepsister has been trying to find the goods for years, but it was when her dad said I should have a game console there that was given by my grandparents and they couldn't find it, they realized what I had done. I was confronted by my mom and her husband, and I admitted it. I told them I didn't trust that girl with my stuff, and I moved it all to safety. My mom asked how stuff is safe when my dad has 2 stepsons at home. I said because they're not allowed to go through my stuff, and because they're good guys who wouldn't do that. My mom's husband was like, "What are you saying about my daughter?" I told him that he's known for years what we think of each other. Mom called my grandparents and asked what they thought of the console going to my dad's. They said they were fine with it, at least it was safe. Mom told me I should have told them my concerns and worked out a better solution than pretty much emptying my room. She also said surely there's stuff I'd be willing to share. I said not with stepsis. Mom told me I wasn't being very fair, and how are we ever going to have a good sister relationship if we don't trust each other? I told Mom we won't because we're not sisters. We will never be sisters, and I don't ever want to be. My mom and her husband think I'm the jerk for doing this, so I gotta ask, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Take everything of yours to your dad's. Take a backpack with clothes to your mom's each week. Don't leave anything there. She may start trying to destroy your clothes next. Am I the jerk for how I reacted when my friend told me what he wrote about in his college essay that got him into the Ivy League? Sam and I have been friends ever since we sat next to each other in 5th grade. We bonded because we both lost a parent when we were really young, but otherwise, our backgrounds couldn't be any more different. My dad worked 60 to 70 hours a week to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in a good school district. I wanted to find a part-time job since I saw how exhausted he was every day, but he told me to focus on school instead. Meanwhile, Sam lived with his heart surgeon dad in a 5,000 square foot mansion with a pool and a private movie theater. I won't lie, it did hurt sometimes to see Sam living life on easy mode while my dad and I struggled. This was especially true in spring of 2020 when my dad was panicking about no longer being able to work while Sam was posting pool selfies. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to do the extracurriculars that look good on college applications due to the cost. I'm planning to work part-time, complete my requirements at community college, and finish my degree at a 4-year school. Meanwhile, Sam took private piano lessons and had a family friend who arranged for him to work in her university research lab over the summers. He even helped publish a scientific paper. Sam knew since the 7th or 8th grade that he wanted to follow his dad's footsteps and attend an Ivy League school. Sure, Sam had legacy and connections, but he's also genuinely the hardest working and smartest person I know. Fast forward to last Sunday, Sam invited me and 2 other friends, Amy and Elaine, to his house. He showed us some of the cool stuff that his college sent him before we all went to hang out by the pool. Unsurprisingly, the conversation soon turned towards college and future plans. Amy asked Sam what he wrote about in his college essay. Sam paused for half a second before saying that he mainly wrote about the struggles he had growing up as the child of a single parent. It was just too much. We were hanging out in a multi-million-dollar house with a pool in the backyard, a private movie theater upstairs, a grand piano in the living room, and 2 BMWs plus a Porsche in the garage. I said, "Sam, really? Do you have any self-awareness at all? How can you even say that you struggled when you know how hard my dad and I had it?" I then left because I was getting increasingly angry and didn't want to say something that I'd regret. I've been avoiding Sam at school all week because I'm honestly still upset at him, even though Amy and Elaine have said that Sam really wants to talk to me. You're the jerk. You didn't read his essay. You don't know what he said or his struggles. Either way, it has nothing to do with you. Life isn't a sum-zero game. Just because you struggled more doesn't mean he didn't struggle at all. His essay wasn't about you. It had nothing to do with you. You're the jerk. Sounds like Sam talked about the struggles of growing up with a single parent, and not all of those troubles are necessarily related to his economic status. Although he's in a really good financial situation, it's really presumptuous to assume that you know everything that's going on in his life behind closed doors. A good friend would be happy for Sam and not belittle him just because he doesn't face the same struggles as you. Have some humility and realize that money doesn't equal happiness in life. This is a complicated one. I've been in this situation. I was you and my friend was Sam. I understand how you feel, and it's natural to feel this way. It's true, Sam is privileged and has had a lot of help. You've been through a lot and have worked hard to make the best with what you had. What makes you the jerk is that you're angry that your dad and you have had to work so hard for minimal return, and you're taking it out on someone that has had nothing to do with that. You said Sam is very hardworking. Clearly, you've been friends for so long for a reason. Go talk to your friend. Be honest, apologize, and tell him you've been a jerk. Don't lose a good friend over jealousy. You're not a bad person. You just have to work on not misdirecting your anger. Am I the jerk for embarrassing a guy in my lecture by telling him I'm not going to answer his questions? I, 20 female, had to do a group presentation as part of my end-of-year assignment, and I think it mostly went great. The presentation was 15 minutes minimum with a 15-minute question session afterwards. There's one guy in my course, John, 21, who many people in the course dislike. He's the epitome of an, well, actually, guy who likes to be the devil's advocate for things that shouldn't have a devil's advocate. He's embarrassed himself more than once by asking ridiculous and pointless questions to our professors that have no relevance, and he's very full of himself. I'm aware that this all may seem harsh, but this has been consistent behavior for the past 2 years, and his attitude has isolated himself from many people in our course who don't want to deal with him. After our presentation, he says he has several questions and proceeds to ask some of the most irrelevant questions. For example, in the presentation, I mentioned that one of my inspirations for the project was a trend in 2020 where grown men, usually 30 to 40-year-olds, would duet girls' TikToks mocking them, from how they liked their coffee to their prom dresses. John's question was, "Don't you think they should get criticism for posting online?" Not only was that not relevant to the project, but you could sense the tension in the room. So many people rolled their eyes, and even his friend gave him a shut up nudge. After a few more questions, which were all directed at me, not the other 3 people in the group, I admittedly got annoyed and said, "Listen, mate, I'm not going to answer any more questions from you. You're clearly trying to grasp at straws here." The rest of the questions from our other peers were great and actually of substance, and overall, I feel the whole thing went well, other than that one hiccup. As we were leaving the hall, I hear John complaining to some of his friends, and then I saw him going to talk to our lecturer. I got an email from our professor asking me to join a Teams meeting where I was expected to apologize for embarrassing John and something about how we were supposed to create a safe space for our fellow peers, and by being rude, I didn't do that. He said if we can sort it out before Thursday, tomorrow, by ourselves, then great. So I sent John a quick message saying I didn't mean to be short with him, but he was clearly asking pointless questions. He just replied, "You didn't have to be a jerk about it," and then blocked me. Am I the jerk? Edit. There were 3 guys and 1 girl, me, in the group, and the professor is a guy also. To everyone asking why I didn't handle this professionally, this is the first time I've done something like this, and I was already nervous because of the grade and assignment aspect, and I get major stage anxiety. This was the first time in my whole life that I've had to do an academic presentation. Not the jerk. Write down the questions John was asking as exactly as possible. Get help from others present if you can. Ask them how they felt about John's questions. Take this to the team's meeting. Say you responded to several of them, though they had no direct relevance to the project. There were only 15 minutes of questions, and you felt that John was not creating a safe space for the others in the room by asking these kinds of questions. Read out your approach to him and his reply. Ask how much time John should have got for those questions, how you should have replied in answer to them. Ask how you could have created a safe space for the whole group. Sit in a broken chair? If you say so. Several years ago, I worked in a group home helping people with mental illness. During the day, we had 2 to 3 staff working at a time. We would work with the clients, and then at the end of our shift, we would log what we did. There was one office with 3 computers in it. One day I came in, and the chair for one of those 3 desks was broken. It was obviously unsafe to sit in it. I asked my coworkers if anyone had reported this to our manager. My coworkers told me that our manager stated the chair was not broken even though it was cracked and leaning to one side. I thought this was so ridiculous, I took a picture of the chair and sent it to my friends, and we all got a good laugh about the definitely not broken chair. The next day I came into work and everything was fine, until it was time to log everything in the computer. There were 3 of us, and now with only 2 usable desks, we had to take turns doing notes while the other just stood there. Our manager came in and asked why one of us was just standing there. We pointed out that the chair was unsafe and we could not use the desk without it. Side note, just before I was hired to work here, I had a serious medical problem in which for 9 months I was unable to eat solid food and had lost so much weight I was only 80 pounds. My recommended weight is 140 for my body type. I was getting better and my manager and coworker were completely unaware that this was the reason for my weight. My boss insisted that the chair could be used. He then told my 2 other coworkers that they were too big and that's why the chair had broke. He stated that he wasn't going to buy any new office furniture until everyone in the office had lost weight because we were costing the company money by damaging the furniture. He explained that I was a healthy weight. I most certainly was not, and everyone should be more like me. To prove that this chair was safe and obesity was the problem, my boss asked me to demonstrate to my coworkers how an ideal employee can use this chair. My boss was expecting me to sit in the chair carefully and cautiously since it really was broken. But I wouldn't be here if that's what happened. I plopped down in the chair, it broke in half instantly, and I fell to the ground. I then pointed out to my boss that company policy requests that he fill out an incident report due to my fall. The next day, my boss calls me into his office and shows me the incident report he filed, in which he told corporate that I had intentionally broken a usable chair. He explained that corporate was angry and had demanded that he take the cost of a new chair out of my paycheck. I mentioned that he forgot to add a few details to his report, which I would be happy to fill corporate in on. The first being the chair was indeed broken, and I had a picture from the day before the incident to prove it was already broken. My boss said I was lying. I showed him the photo, and he went white. I further explained that he forgot to tell them he ordered me to sit in the chair, despite several people mentioning it looked unsafe, and I had 2 witnesses to that. I also mentioned that I felt corporate would love to know that he told his employees they were too big for new chairs, and I had 2 witnesses to that statement. I got up and stated that I would let corporate know now before I forget. My boss panicked and stated that he would not take the cost out of my paycheck and he would order new chairs, which we desperately needed for all of the desks. Don't call my friends names or try to push unhealthy body images. Am I the jerk for walking out of the airport when I saw my husband's mom standing there with her luggage? I, 30 female, don't have the best relationship with my husband's mom. Since day one, she tried to make remarks and compare me to her. She then tried to get on my good side and started overly praising everything I do and sometimes even copies me, like one time when she literally dyed her hair purple just like mine, and when everyone pointed out how ridiculous she looked, she actually blamed me and accused me of trying to make a joke out of her. So anyways, my husband and I took 2 weeks off work to go visit some places out of the country. Tourism, in other words. Thing is, I was the one who saved up for and arranged for the trip. My husband was responsible for booking the tickets. My husband's mom wanted to come along and threw temper tantrums when I said no. She called, texted, sent people to talk me into letting her come, even threatened to call the police and make some complaint up to get us to stay if she can't come. My husband said we should just take her, but I told him he was wrong to tell her about the trip in the first place. He gave me an ultimatum, said he wouldn't go if she can't come, and I told him I'd gladly call his bluff, which made him take his words back and say, "Fine, I will tell her to stop it because we won't take her." Things got quieter, suspiciously quieter. The day of the trip came and we got to the airport at 2 p.m. My husband was walking ahead of me and was looking left and right, like he was looking for someone. I asked him, but he didn't respond. He led me to the waiting area, and first thing I saw was his mom standing there with her luggage. I froze in my spot. I felt a cold wave washing over me, and I was fuming inside. She and my husband were hugging. That's why I quietly turned around and started walking towards the exit. My husband followed me while shouting at me to stop. He tried to stop me, but I told him off the harshest way possible. He tried to say I was overreacting and that his mom was there anyway, and I should let it go and not mess up the trip for us. I told him he and his mom could still go and that I was going home. I went home and sobbed into my dog's fur for several minutes. Turned out, he booked her a ticket without me even knowing. An hour later, he came home yelling and raging about how pathetic and spiteful I was to walk out and go home and ruin the trip last minute. I told him he caused this to happen. He said that I was being so hard on his mom and it's ridiculous. I refused to fight anymore, but he kept on berating me, and then called my family to tell them that the trip was canceled and that it was because of me. My family said that I shouldn't have ruined it for myself and should have just sucked it up and done my best to enjoy it. Did I really overreact? I don't want to call the divorce card, but divorce. You told your boundaries, you said no. She crossed it. Your husband told you he would tell her no. He lied. He tried to pin you in a corner by not saying anything and bringing her anyways, and got upset you refused to be part of his little trap. And then to berate you? He's not a good person. He needs to go. Not the jerk. My Karen ex-wife demands I babysit for her while her husband is in the hospital. Things are complicated, but I'll try to sum it up for you. I, 34 male, met my ex-wife 7 years ago. We dated for 1 year and were married for 2 before we divorced. When we met, she already had 2 kids from her previous relationship, Patrick, who's 13, and Luna, who's 10. We have 1 son together, Tony, who's 5 now. My own relationship with her kids was good, but they never treated me like their dad or something like that, because their dad was involved in their life. Although my wife had primary custody, we all understood I was a stepdad and we were fine with it. My relationship with my ex-wife was good and I thought very loving. Although after our divorce, I realized that she used to talk a lot about her ex-husband, comparing the 2 of us and stuff like that, which is definitely weird, but I didn't notice it at the time. Well, turns out that she really couldn't forget her ex and she ended up cheating with him. This was very hard to process when I found out thanks to one of her friends, and our divorce was not easy. When her family found out about her infidelity, they got very angry at her and went no contact with her. All of this happened 4 years ago. Ever since, her and her husband had 2 more babies together, one who's 3 and the other is a few months old. Her husband got diagnosed with cancer around November of last year. Even after everything they did to me, I still feel sorry for them and their kids. It's a sad situation, which makes me think I'm a jerk. My ex and I have shared custody with our son, but ever since her husband got sick, my son has been staying with me more days, as sometimes my ex's husband has to stay at the hospital and my ex has to help him. I'm okay with this, of course. However, my ex asked me if I can start taking all of her kids home with me when I pick my son up in these kinds of emergencies. I told her that I don't want to do that, and instead she should ask a friend to take care of them or try to pay a babysitter. I pay good childcare, and I know they're not spending all that money on my son at the moment because he's mostly with me. I think it'll be enough to pay for a couple of hours. She told me her friends don't want to help her anymore and her family still doesn't talk to her. I told them they need to figure out a solution. I will only help take care of my son. I feel like a jerk, to be honest, like I'm being too petty. I meant child support. Not the jerk. Sounds like your ex has burned a bunch of bridges and is trying to make you her lifeline because you share a kid. The whole situation is unfortunate, but it isn't your responsibility to help her. You're right about her being able to use the money you pay for child support to pay for care for her other kids. But even without that, it would still not be your responsibility. You sound like a caring person and she knows how to make you feel guilty, but it's not wrong for you to refuse to help. Why should you feel like a jerk when you don't want to take care of 5 kids, aged 0 to 13, instead of just 1? That's a big responsibility. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your ex is. Cheated with her ex gets sick and wants you to take care of her kids with ex? That is completely disrespectful to you. Take care of your kid. In fact, get full custody and tell her to buzz off. Am I the jerk for making my wife cry because she threw my birthday party wrong? My wife is a lovely person whom I love very much, and we have a strong relationship. She is, however, agreed by all parties, very emotional and prone to tears. That's fine. I knew what I was signing up for. It's just relevant context. Recently, I had a birthday. My wife asked what I wanted to do for it. I said that I would really like to just have a quiet day, mostly at home. Wake up late, have coffee, play some video games, and the 2 of us could go for dinner. If we needed to do anything else, we could get a massage. She tends to prefer parties and big events, while I like to relax. If she just got dinner reservations somewhere low-key and maybe even wore something nice, that would be perfect. I wouldn't want anything else. That can be hard for her to understand, I think because it's so different from her preferences. So she set up a big party. She told me the morning of that she had invited some people over to celebrate. I said, "Oh, okay, that's not what I was expecting. Who's coming?" I think she could tell that I was a little disappointed because she started to get kind of defensive, saying it's just a few of our friends and they want to be with me on my birthday, etc. And that's fine, it's not a big deal. It isn't like I hate parties or our friends, so I said okay and we went about the day. Some friends and a couple of family members started arriving around noon, and people stayed until about 6 p.m. It was nice to see people. No major issues, just not what I would have chosen for a big day off type of thing. I tend to like to relax and re-energize on weekends, and find events like that, when I'm in the center of attention, very draining. My wife seemed a little on edge though, and that night while we were cleaning up, she asked how my birthday was. I said it was pretty good, with a little bit of a shrug. Admittedly, that wasn't the best thing to say, but I don't like to be dishonest. It was fine, but not spectacular. She got really upset and burst into tears, telling me she had worked hard on it, and it's so challenging when I won't participate or tell her what I want. I said that it's okay, it's not a big deal or worth being so upset over, and I appreciated the effort she went to, and it was nice to see people. But I felt like I had been pretty clear about what my preference would have been, and it seemed like she didn't listen to me. That made her even more upset, and she said she couldn't believe she did so much for me, and instead of thanking her, I made her cry. I had thanked her earlier. The conversation didn't make much progress from there that night, but it still feels like a sore spot for us. She's been annoyed with me the past few days for ruining my birthday. I don't want to be ungrateful, but don't really feel like I should be apologizing here. Am I just being stubborn? Not the jerk. You did clearly say what you wanted. She did not listen. You weren't nasty about it either, just sincere. I hate it when people want to be praised for something that was unasked for. I think you have nothing to apologize for. Not the jerk. Your wife made your birthday about her. You told her clearly what you wanted. She chose to do what she wanted, then she was upset because you didn't like it. She sounds exhausting. As someone who cries easily, I hate it when people say anytime a woman cries, she's being manipulative. That being said, your wife sounds extremely manipulative. First, you did tell her what you wanted, in a lot of detail. Second, you didn't make her cry. She did that on her own. If the issue is truly that she cries easily, she should be mature enough to not blame others for that. Third, she's the one who made the mistake, but you're the one getting punished? Yeah, she can get out of here with that mess. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for helping my niece pay for her dream degree against her parents' wishes? I'm 48 male. My niece, Ella, who's 17, will soon be in her senior year and plans to study history in university. She's a good student and should definitely get in her safety school at least. My sister and brother-in-law, both 46, are not happy with her choice. They want her to get a degree that will lead to a good job opportunity, like science or engineering. I make mid to high six figures, and I'm a single father, widower, to one daughter who's 15. I also am a big believer of doing what you love because life is short. I told Ella that if she can't get a scholarship, I'll provide her with financial aid during university, and she can pay me back whenever. She's now working on her early admissions and is doing volunteer work while cutting her usual summer job hours at the local amusement park in half. My niece's parents called me a huge jerk for doing this. They said I don't understand their struggle. My brother-in-law studied liberal arts and works in HR for a medium-sized company, and my sister has an associate's degree and is currently a manager at a chain restaurant. They're doing okay, but they're not comfortable. They said the only reason I get to throw my money around is because I'm an engineer and my late wife was a pharmacist. We got useful degrees that helped us get ahead in life. They said if I thought a degree that won't make money is so great, maybe I should pull my daughter out of the gifted science program she's in at her school. I told them I know plenty of people who studied various different degrees that are successful, but they said the successful ones are far in between. They also said they don't want Ella to set a bad example for her brother, Ben, who's 14, who expressed interest in being a veterinarian. I told them I'll support Ella's decision no matter what, and if she's doing what makes her happy, that shouldn't be a bad example, and Ben is too young to settle his mind on anything. I then threw them out of my house. Still, I wonder if I'm the jerk here. Edit. I only said for her to pay me back, only to make sure she doesn't waste her opportunities. I intend to make a gift of it upon her graduation. Not the jerk. Your niece's parents are understandably concerned about her future. However, they are using their life experiences to try to force your niece onto a path they wish they had taken. But it's a path she doesn't want to take. Her dreams are important. It's extremely generous of you to do what you're doing. Stick to your guns. Not the jerk. Your brother and sister need to stop blaming their degree choices on their careers and earnings. I did an English degree and now in my 30s currently earn $50,000, which in the UK is not bad at all. The history degree would not be at all useless. She will gain a lot of skills from this, and the fact that she's already working so hard towards this strongly suggests she could be one of the successful graduates. Not the jerk. I can't shake the thought that they're counting on a successful daughter to provide their retirements. And if the son can be dissuaded from becoming a DVM because his sister majored in history, he hasn't got the commitment needed to get through vet school. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his niece's parents? Please let us know.
There's nothing wrong with useless college degrees. Some of the best baristas I've ever known have them.
Karen, do you realize how many people you're gonna upset by joking like that?
Who said I was joking, Reddit boy?
Am I the jerk for telling a vegan he could have a cookie? Not too long ago, my coworker friend made cookies, but she had to work off-site that day and asked me to distribute them to our friend group. I, 32 female, had the cookies sitting on my desk when one of our friends popped in to say hi. He's 60 plus, male, asked what the cookies were for, and I explained so-and-so had made them and that I was planning on passing them out at lunch. This particular friend eats mostly a vegan diet due to health issues, but semi-regularly eats milk, chocolate, chili peppers, and fish sauce, and several other questionably vegan items. He also cheats when he travels abroad because many cultures don't understand the restrictions of his diet. Anyway, he asked me if he would be allowed to have a cookie, to which I immediately said, sure. He ate the cookie and said it was good. The next day, the friend who made the cookies asked how they went over. I said everyone liked them and listed the people who had one. She was surprised that our vegan friend had one, but I told her that he's flexible with occasional treats. Later, she joked to him that she was disillusioned about his diet and realized she didn't have to worry so much about making things he'd be able to eat. He then turned around and scolded me, saying, "I asked you if they were vegan." I responded with, "You absolutely did not." He said that by asking if they were something he could have, he was obviously asking if they were made with animal products. I told him that I answered the question as he asked it, and it never occurred to me that he wanted to know about the ingredients. He acted like I was being deliberately obtuse, and so I told him that his diet is not my responsibility and that he needs to directly ask and not assume that people will guess. He was upset with me, and I ended up getting mad at him and refused to apologize. So, am I the jerk? Edit for info. It honestly didn't occur to me that that's what he was asking. I wasn't trying to be pedantic. Maybe I was naive. I know that he's flexible because I have previously gifted him a box of chocolate that I know he likes that contains milk, and he ate them. I guess I could try to be more considerate in the future, but to be honest, having to guess people's meaning is a pet peeve of mine. Just tell me what you want. I'm not a mind reader. Not the jerk. Standard cookies are made with butter and eggs. He should be an adult and take responsibility for his diet, and the way he asked is absolutely how you interpreted it. He was deflecting because he got called out by the other coworker who made them. Not the jerk. Am I allowed to have one? In this case comes across as, the cookies weren't intended for me, but I would like one anyway. Your friend worded his question poorly, and while his cheats are his own business, they do create a scenario where you could reasonably expect that he's not worried if the cookies are vegan. He needs to be responsible for his own diet and his own poor choice of words in this scenario.
Oh, look, a vegan whose brain doesn't work right. What a surprise.
Oh, you're on a roll today, aren't you? You know we're probably gonna lose some vegan subscribers for that, right?
Well, maybe we'll gain some non-vegan subscribers and even things out.
You are so rude. Am I the jerk for wanting a separate Christmas without my sister's kids? I, male 28, have several siblings all about my age. Only my youngest sister, who's female 25, has kids, of which she has 5 of. I see nothing wrong with my sister wanting to be a mom, and I love my nieces and nephews, but I can't be around them much. I have a medical condition that can cause seizures when I'm overstimulated, and generally messes me up if I can't leave to decompress. When we visit our parents for the holidays, I'll hang out with my other siblings and their spouses. Then when my sister shows up with her husband, I'll greet them, visit for a minute, then put in my headphones and go somewhere else when noise picks up. If it was a normal level of chaos, it might even be okay. I'm pretty fine with the adults laughing and talking, but she'll bring loud toys, turn on Cocoa Melon, and let the kids run wild. I can't handle it for too long without having to bail, and asking for things to be quieter is usually met with a, "Ha! Try living with this." Not very productive. It sucks getting to visit with my family for maybe 2 hours and then basically having to leave the party. I've tried catching up with people away from the group, but my sister takes it personally and keeps asking why I don't want to talk to her and her husband. She knows about the seizures. I just think something isn't clicking in her brain, even though I keep explaining why I can't stick around. Last year, we had bad weather, and my sister couldn't drive from out of state to come to the Christmas party. Most of us were already at our parents' place when she texted, so we just had the party anyway and planned a follow-up for them in a couple of weeks. It ended up being a blast. I actually got to stay for the whole thing. I didn't mind a bit that I had to hang out in the kitchen for most of the second party. I got the fun out of my system and was just happy to see my sister and meet her new baby. When my sister found out that we basically did Christmas without her, she was understandably upset. She and her kids still had presents to open and we had a nice lunch, but there wasn't the same adult party she had hoped she could join. Granted, her joining the adults was her unleashing her kids and getting tipsy while our parents struggled to keep them from destroying their house. But I get it. Getting left out sucks. That being said, I loved having two parties, and I asked my dad about doing this every year. While he also enjoyed our party, we both agreed that splitting up Christmas would really upset my sister. Living out of state with that many kids, it's basically impossible for her to do both parties. We tried to think of other options, but most of us spend New Year with our spouses, and my sister would be furious if she found out we didn't invite her to a non-holiday family party. I just don't think it's fair that I practically have to skip Christmas half the time because she has so many rowdy kids. So Reddit, am I the jerk for wanting a separate party? Is there another solution I'm not seeing? Not the jerk. If she wants to be included, her kids shouldn't be destroying the house and making work for everyone else. If that's not possible, do the two parties till her kids are old enough to learn manners and follow rules. Absolutely not the jerk. This might be a dreadful suggestion, but has your sister ever actually witnessed a seizure? It might be worth engineering one when she's around so she can see how awful they are. I have similar health issues, meltdowns, also a really dodgy gut, and my brother and his wife honestly didn't realize just how bad they were until they saw both firsthand. It made them a lot more accommodating. However, I realize it's an extreme suggestion, and you may need to enroll the rest of your family to support you. OP. I think if it were possible for her to see one in private, it might convince her that they are a real problem. But her kids are at an age where I think it would be terrifying for them to see. If their uncle just dropped and started short-circuiting, I'm worried it would be pandemonium. Maybe if things get to an extreme, it might be something to consider, but I'd like to avoid it if I can. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my Neopets account to my niece? Okay, so I'm upset and confused, and I told my sister and brother-in-law I would post here to settle this argument, so they will be seen in reading this. For those who don't know, Neopets is a virtual pet game site that was really popular around the late 90s and early 2000s. It kind of died a bit for a while, but has recently started to get popular again. I've been playing it for years. My account is 18 years old, and it has the stats to reflect that. Pets, avatars, stamps, gallery, trophies, etc. If you don't play, it may not mean a lot, and not to brag, but I have a rather impressive account due to the fact that I've been playing it for so long. I, 34 female, have no kids. Not child-free, just don't have any. My sister, 32 female, and brother-in-law, 34 male, have a daughter who's 11, who's been very sickly all of her life. I'll not go into exactly what's wrong with her, but she's been in and out of hospitals a lot in her young life and recently had to go back in again for a few weeks. I recently learned that she's been playing Neopets for a few months to help pass the time when she's not feeling well. She's really gotten into it, and from what my sister says, talks about it a lot. She was excited to learn I also play, and we talked about it when I visited her. I looked up her account and gifted her a bunch of stuff. Expensive stuff that would be hard for a newer account to get. In-game stuff using in-game money, which can be kind of hard to earn in large amounts. Anyway, long story short, she asked how I can afford the stuff I sent her. It was worth millions of points, and how I have all the stuff that my account has. I explained to her that I had been playing for 18 years, did every plot and event, etc. Well, apparently she got upset at the huge difference between our two accounts and asked for more stuff. When I told her no, she started crying to my sister and brother-in-law about it. My brother-in-law came over and asked if I could gift my account to my niece for her upcoming birthday, which she has to spend in the hospital. Said it would mean the world to her. I said no. I've had this account since before she was born, before we even met my brother-in-law. I don't want to get rid of it. I still play on it literally every day. Well, he got mad and tried guilt-tripping me. I'm an adult and she's a kid, and it would make her happy in a rough time in her life. I'm happy to help her learn the tricks and trades of the game, but I'm not giving away my account. He tried to buy it off me, but I still said no. Now he's super upset and got my sister and my parents on their side. I'm being hounded every day for this and being called a jerk because it's all my niece will talk about and she really wants it. I feel bad because she's just a kid in the hospital and guilty for not giving it to her. I offered to send a bunch of stuff to her account again, but she wants my stats too, so that she's not treated like a newbie who doesn't know anything by other players too. I feel guilty for this, but I want to keep my account. Am I the jerk? You've been playing for 18 years. It obviously means a lot to you. I'm sorry for your sister and brother-in-law that their kid is sick, but what a bunch of entitled jerks to insist you just give these 18 years of your life up for your niece. Her parents are obviously used to giving in to her every whim. They should start parenting and teach her that the world doesn't revolve around her. Not the jerk. And please don't give her your account. She should learn to work for something instead of having it handed over because she wants it. Am I the jerk for babysitting my friend's kid and refusing to leave when his girlfriend asked me to? So I, 22 female, have a friend, 25 male, who asked me to look after his son, who's 4, for a couple of hours. He said he'd pay me 10 euros an hour, so I accepted. While babysitting his son, his girlfriend, who's 25, came over and was surprised to see me there. She asked what I was doing here, and I told her that I was here to watch his son. She then asked if it was like a last-minute thing because his mother canceled. I said no. He asked me about a week ago, but I don't know if he previously asked his mom. She said that's impossible because not even 2 days ago, he told her that the mother would be watching his son. So I was like, well, the only thing I know is that he asked me to babysit, said he'd pay me, so I accepted. She got mad and asked if there was something between him and I. I denied, repeated that I'm only here to babysit and that's it. She said that since I knew he was in a relationship, I should have declined. So I said, listen, I'm sorry he lied to you, but I'm only here to get paid. She said that nobody accepts to look over someone else's kid only to get paid. I said, yes, people who want to get paid do. She said that I was playing with her, that if I was respectful of their relationship, I'd leave. I refused. I told her if she's so mad, then she should call her boyfriend and demand an explanation, but I was staying here to do what I was paid to do. She left, and I didn't hear from her again until recently. She texted me saying that I would never babysit for her boyfriend again and that he agreed with her on it. I didn't reply because I really don't care. I'm not even that close to the guy, and like I said, I only wanted to get paid. I was paid, and that's it. But when I talked about it to my mom and sister, they said that I should have left when she asked me to avoid any drama between them. I said that's not my problem. I was asked to watch over his son and I accepted. If her boyfriend decided to lie to her about it, it was not my fault. But now I'm not really sure and I just want to know. Am I the jerk for babysitting my friend's son and refusing to leave when his girlfriend asked me to? Edit. I texted him about what she sent me to make sure he knew. I'm currently waiting on an answer. Edit. He saw it, but he didn't reply. I tried another text, but I doubt it'll work either, so I guess that's it. I saw that it made a few people confused. She's not the mother, she's just his girlfriend. It won't let me post an update, but long story short, he apologized for what happened with his girlfriend, said he lied because he knew she would have been jealous. He confirmed he knew about the text and did agree with it. I said okay, told him to lose my number, and that his girlfriend should do the same. I hung up, and that was it. Not the jerk. Imagine being so insecure in your relationship that you deny the existence of babysitters. Not the jerk, and I would not have left either. You were asked to be in charge of his son's safety and well-being. That doesn't get passed off to some random girlfriend because she demands it. Your responsibility to the kid ends when the parent takes back the responsibility. Am I the jerk for arguing with my husband's doctor and acting like a Karen? My husband has a sore foot. No injury or medical condition that would explain the pain, but he hasn't been able to walk properly for about a week. Being the absolute pain in my butt that he is, he's refused to go to the doctor until today. Apparently, he preferred to just complain to me. It's gotten progressively more swollen looking, and today it's turned a funny color, and he can't put any weight on it. So I called our GP, who has sent him to the walk-in clinic at our local hospital. We finally get seen, and the doctor refused to even examine it. Told him without even looking at the foot that it was just a sprain, and he wasn't going to prescribe him any painkillers, so not to ask. Then he started demonstrating some kind of exercises that involved going up and down on tiptoes and flexing the toes. I asked if he would please just look at it, because it's nearly gone black in some spots and looks similar to how my wrist looked when I broke it a few years ago. He huffed at me and asked where my medical degree was from. I demanded to see another doctor or his senior. I was the jerk here because it wasn't me being treated, so I get that he thought I was pushy. Husband would have accepted the doctor's instructions without any questions about actually needing to be examined. Doctor left, and we heard him outside the cubicle telling the senior doctor that they have a confrontational spouse who thinks her WebMD searching qualifies her to instruct real doctors on how to practice medicine. He also states that he suspects my husband of exaggeration to get meds. By the time the other doctor arrives, I'm seething, and I lay out exactly what went on and explained I only want someone to look at the foot before sending us away. He looks, cue x-rays, an MRI, the good painkillers, and a walking boot cast thing with potential to need surgery because he's got 7 stress fractures in that foot, probably from running. Admittedly, worse than they needed to be because he didn't get any treatment when it first started to hurt. Second doctor and someone from the hospital admin came and apologized for the first doctor and asked if we want to make a formal complaint. So I did, because the outcome of his not listening to the patient or family could have been worse. Husband did not. Husband said later that the first doctor may get sacked because of me complaining, and I should have just left it because no real harm was done. Was I the jerk for complaining? I don't usually have caring tendencies, but he was just so patronizing and dismissive, and I kept thinking, what if it was a young mother with a sick baby and he dismissed it? Not everyone would stand their ground, and there could be serious consequences. Edit. Thank you for all the comments and awards. I did not expect this to go as mental as it did. I've shown hubby the post, and he's starting to realize how serious it could have been, and is going to email the admin guy we saw this afternoon. He gave us his contact details for my complaint. He's also agreed that delaying treatment the way he did was incredibly stupid and has decided to take up the counseling referral with the GP, so he will be less useful in future medical situations. Thankfully, we were eventually given appropriate treatment, and hopefully the follow-up will be positive. I'll stick an update on here if anything interesting to report. Once again, thanks for setting my mind at ease and sharing your opinions. Not the jerk. You were right to be insistent. The doctor was not doing his job. You did what you had to do. I'm going to add that your husband is a huge jerk here too. Not taking care of your health and making yourself a burden on your spouse is downright selfish. He needs a stern talking to. At the very least, you need to stop enabling him. In the future, stop dealing with these instances. If he dares complain, call him out on the need to take care of himself and not to be a burden to you. OP. I accept that my husband should have sought help much earlier, but he wasn't actually being a burden apart from complaining. Long and tedious background, but he actually has a genuine fear of hospitals, so tends to either avoid them, or if he's there, he'll accept whatever is said to him in order to get out as fast as possible. He definitely has his jerk moments, but where hospitals are concerned, he is genuinely in need of an advocate, which is what I try to be. Your husband's mental health may not be his fault, but it is his responsibility. He needs to get a handle of this. He doesn't get to walk around for days on a foot with fractures and not take care of it. OP. I completely agree. However, that's a battle for another day. A day when I'm able to remain calm and discuss it rationally, and not while I'm riled up and emotional about what could have happened. Also not the best idea whilst I'm slightly peeved at what I'm going to have to actually run around at. Also not the best idea whilst I'm slightly peeved that I'm going to have to actually run around after him and his gimpy foot now. Not the jerk. Honestly, the doctor should be fired. He totally dismissed yours and your husband's concerns. Progressive foot pain getting worse over time. Discoloration of the skin, cannot bear weight on the foot, husband is a runner. I think most medical personnel and laymen would agree that an actual physical examination of the foot was in order, which this guy didn't even bother to do. You were right to ask for another doctor. Good luck to your husband, and I hope his healing goes well. I don't work here, but now you get to come to my work. I'm a correctional officer and I work nights. After work, I normally just go home and sleep to get ready for my next 12-hour shift. However, on my days off, I take the time to do chores and housework. On this day, I did not have the night off, so I get done what I could before going to bed. So I went home and picked up my wife and kiddos to go grocery shopping. We get to the store and start doing the usual. A lady comes up to me and my family and starts asking for directions to items. Some I know and some I don't, so I tell her where the things I know are and I apologize for the things I don't. Now, mind you, I'm in full uniform. Taser cross draw, cuffs on each hip, fogger on left thigh, spray, and all the other items I use at work. On top of all that, I smell of peppers, sweat, mold, and rust as the facility I work at is old and moist. She seems upset but walks away. We continue shopping, and after a while, we meet up with the lady and she spots us and comes down, but this time she's upset. She starts screaming that I'm the worst employee ever and I should be fired for not helping. She continues on about how I should be catching shoplifters or back watching the cameras instead of flirting with this lady. Yeah, she's one of those. I interrupt her rant and I said the usual words of, "I don't work here." She of course fails to hear them, as this is the usual on this sub, and she continues her rant, yelling and screaming that she picked me to help her because I'm the asset protection and I should know where everything is. I ask my wife to take the kids and find a manager for this Karen. The lady, from now on known as Karen, is none too pleased to hear her secret identity outed and increases her volume. I try to explain to Karen that I'm a jailer, not loss prevention at a grocery store. I tell her to go buzz off and find someone that actually works here. I then turn my back and start to walk away when I'm nailed in the back of the head and I fall forward in a full face plant. I'm hurting, dazed, and I can feel glass all around me. I roll onto my back and feel around. It's pasta sauce. This jerk just brained me with pasta sauce. She's still yelling and screaming and raising another jar to throw. I grab my taser, aim, and pop. Down she goes. Hard. I get up, I stumble over, I flip her around and cuff her. She's out like a light. My guess is the fall. I then sit back down and take an inventory of myself. I'm hurt pretty badly from my head, but I seem to be all right. My wife, the customers, and management show up as I'm checking over Karen. I pulled my med kit off the back of my belt to get to the smelling salts. I then tell them to call 911 and I continue checking on Karen. She's awake, dazed, and blissfully quiet. The rest goes as expected. The police arrive, they question me, question her, watch the cameras, and I refuse medical treatment, but I do press charges, as my wife is a boss. I say that with reverence. She's medically trained and will take good care of me. I go home. She asked if I wanted staples or glue. I chose glue. She glues my head and we take a shower, go to sleep, and she wakes me up from time to time, which I know isn't the best idea. But hey, a few days later I'm writing this, so I ended up alright. I get a call a couple hours before my shift ordering me to come in early to talk to rank. Dreading this, I follow my orders and get up, shaved, showered, and dressed. I go in and have to explain the whole thing again and again. Then they show me the video from the store. It's exactly as I explained, though I did note she could throw far better than I could have dreamed. They order me not to wear my uniform outside of work and tell me I'll be working in booking tonight. I'm not very good at booking, but look forward to the training and activity of it, as the rest of the facility is slow and boring. 11 p.m. rolls around, and who do I see being escorted into booking but Karen? I start to talk, but my sergeant taps me and hushes me. He talks to the deputy bringing her in, and they start doing the paperwork while I watch and try to learn as much as possible. She gets charged. Now Karen gets to live at my workplace. I don't get to work in the female zones, but the booking process was fun, though I wasn't allowed to do anything but watch. After she's booked, I'm told to report to another zone, and I end up finishing the night. Now for the past few days, pasta jokes have been in abundance, and her nickname is Pasta Lady. Her court date isn't for a while, and she's reportedly not getting along with the other inmates. My Karen wife loses it over the Mother's Day card I gave her. My wife told me yesterday, all I want for Mother's Day is to have the day completely off. I don't need or want anything else. I confirmed with her multiple times, and then I started planning a day for my two boys and I. Today comes by. I intercept my oldest son at 7 a.m. before he comes into our room. We go downstairs to watch his favorite morning show and to eat breakfast. The moment I heard my youngest wake up, I got him out of his crib and took him downstairs. We finished breakfast, and I had them start working on handmade cards for my wife. When I hear her get up, we surprise her with the cards from the kids. Here's where things went wrong. My wife asks me, "Did you write me anything?" I told her I was working on it, but wasn't done yet. I had been busy with the kids and wanted to finish it up. She was not happy. I quickly finished it up and sent it to her. A note on this: I'm not a very well-spoken person. I have a hard time putting my thoughts together, so I used Google to turn my thoughts into a letter. She knows I struggle in this area. I come inside and she tells me that I plagiarized and used Google for her letter. I told her I absolutely did, but that the main points were mine. I then sent her the original, and she scoffed and said, "That's it?" So Reddit, am I the jerk for using Google to make myself sound more elegant? Am I the jerk for not writing enough in my original? Final thought. She told me all she wanted was a day off. She is still getting that and is currently out with all of her girlfriends. Quick edit. Had an awesome day with my boys. Wife was nowhere to be found for most of it, and I have to say, it's the best day we, my boys and I, have had in a while. Edit 2. I just saw a post on Facebook about how she's had an awesome day with her boys. She's still out with her girlfriends getting her nails and hair done. Edit 3. We're all in bed now. Wife just got home and asked me if I still planned on working out tonight. I straight up told her I was exhausted and going to bed. She's now not talking to me. I'm so done with her attitude and the drama that she brings to the table. You didn't do anything until the day of. Like, you found out what she wanted yesterday. Of course she told you she didn't want anything. If someone asks the day before, you know they didn't do anything yet and won't have anything ready. Your excuse for not having a card for her was because you hadn't done it yet because of the kids. That would not have been a problem if you had actually done it before. You waited until the day of. The reason she's going off is because she realized yesterday during your talk that you didn't do anything in advance. She was going in disappointed already. Everyone sucks here, but honestly, I see why she started off in a bad mood. You set the bar exceptionally low by only talking to her the day before and doing nothing in advance. Everyone sucks here. Your wife shouldn't expect you to read her mind that she wants a card when she explicitly said something else, and you were going to give that to her. On the other hand, Mother's Day cards are kind of a given, and you didn't write anything until the day of. You should have had the foresight to realize you'd be busy with the kids on that day and made some effort to put something together beforehand. This is pretty basic planning. You're the jerk. Why didn't you write the card the day before so it was ready to go? And Googling what to write sounds lazy. She just wanted you to put in the effort to give her a heartfelt card on time. She doesn't sound ungrateful. She sounds fed up and not appreciated enough for you to make sufficient effort. Not the jerk. Why are men still getting married in America? Do you realize how many countries there are where you can find a wife who won't act like this, who will respect you and not act like a spoiled, emotionally stunted brat? Sweet, kind, loving people who want to have a mutually respectful and loving marriage are plentiful, but you will have to search overseas to find them. That's what I did 10 years ago, and I now have a beautiful family of my own. My friends laughed at me when I left the States, but they're all divorced now and on their second or third marriages. In life, it's never a bad idea to go where you're wanted and where you'll be treated right. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my cousin and getting us kicked out of a restaurant? I, female 25, don't have kids yet. I never really wanted them growing up, but I figure I'll eventually have kids in the future once I get my life together. My cousin, Sarah, who's 29, has 2 badly behaved kids from a previous relationship and a newborn baby with her boyfriend, MJ, who's 40. Last night, my mother, sister, Sarah, and I went to a sushi restaurant, and this was my first time having sushi. After we ordered, I had a hard time using the chopsticks. My cousin started obnoxiously laughing. The waiter came over and asked me if I wanted training wheels, which is a little plastic item that attaches to the chopsticks and it helps you hold them in place. My cousin laughed and said, "Sorry about her. She constantly embarrasses herself and us." I just gave her the side eye and put the training wheels on. When it was time to order dessert, her boyfriend MJ finally joined us, claiming that he was busy. She went on to tell him how stupid I was for not knowing how to use chopsticks and how the waiters and everyone around now knows that I'm an embarrassment. My mom asked her what her problem was, and she goes on a rant about how I'm so embarrassing, and it's no wonder I'm jealous of her being a mother, and no one wants to have kids with me. I finally had enough. I said, "I don't have kids because I don't want them to come out like your rude little jerks, and you're calling me an embarrassment? Didn't MJ just have a baby on you with his wife? Your baby literally has a sibling a week apart from her. You probably learned how to use chopsticks by having his wife's leftovers." I guess when she was attacking me, it was fine because everyone turned on me. It got so loud that management had to get involved. Sarah was screaming and crying, MJ was yelling at me, and my mom and sister were going off on me for being mean. Management brought the bill and told us to please pay it and leave. My mom paid the entire bill, but my sister said I'm a jerk for embarrassing Sarah and getting us kicked out, and how she's probably going through postpartum depression. Now, I don't know if I went too far, seeing as she's probably going through some post-baby stress. Am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. My goodness, what a dreadful scene. I feel awful for the other diners, many of whom were probably honoring Mother's Day a night early if you're in the US. You should probably give some real consideration to avoiding being in public with these people. Maybe avoid them altogether. They don't sound like they bring anything good to your life. Oh, and totally not the point, but chopsticks are super easy once you have the hang of them. There's a learning curve, but then all of a sudden, you know how. Either go out with nicer people who will coach you instead of harassing you, or fiddle with it at home. Even if it doesn't come up often, it's one of those things that's nice to be able to do confidently. Edit. I can't approve of the airing of dirty laundry, but I can and do applaud your line about how she learned to use the chopsticks. Magnificently brutal. Am I the jerk for refusing to help cook on Mother's Day? On Thursday, my dad, 42 male, took me, 18 male, to help pick out a frame for my mom's Mother's Day gift, which was a frame that said, "Mom, you are the piece that holds us together," with puzzle pieces beneath it with our names on it. After 2 hours of shopping, we got what we needed, and I picked out a frame for us to use. My brother, who's 4, received a little credit since he was little. And my other brother, who's 15, did as well, though he didn't help. He just said whether or not it looked good. On Friday, the gift was complete, so we showed it to Mom that evening and she liked it. We took a picture with it as well. We had a garage sale on Saturday, but we all did our own thing afterward. That evening, I played with a few online friends and decided to stay up late since it was the weekend and we didn't have plans on Sunday. I decided to go to bed around 2:30 a.m. This morning, Sunday, my dad opens my door at 9:05 a.m., which wakes me up. He asks me to help cook the eggs for Mother's Day. I explained to him that I was trying to sleep because I stayed up late and didn't know we planned to make breakfast beforehand so that I wouldn't stay up late. Dad insists that I help with the eggs or the waffles, but I reiterated that I'm still trying to sleep because I stayed up late. He said I would help with the eggs and said a pan was out and that I had 6 minutes and started closing the door. I quickly tried to say that I had already told him. At around 9:45 a.m., he came in again while I was in bed asleep. The opening of the door woke me up and he said, "How do you think that'll make her feel, hearing that you refused to help make her breakfast?" I replied that I had already helped with her Mother's Day gift, and he said something along the lines that he was the one who had the idea and actually built it, and that helping with breakfast is something I can have more control over. I replied, "Got it. I wasn't part of her gift." After some back and forth, he closed the door a little. It wasn't fully closed, and left to go continue cooking. At around 10:15 a.m., breakfast was ready, and I was asleep. He came to my door, slammed it shut, and walked towards the kitchen, going off about me, but he didn't really call me any names from what I heard. I'm not sure what he said, but I think it's related to doing what I wanted and not what the household needed. I feel like he failed to communicate his plans, and that if he had told me he intended on making breakfast the next morning for Mother's Day, even after her gift, it would have helped me to know not to stay up late under the impression that we finished Mother's Day and that we had nothing planned. Am I the jerk? Edit. Based on all your comments, I acknowledge that I messed up. I should have gotten up to help with breakfast, but I didn't, and I'm ashamed that I didn't do better. I have decided to coordinate dinner, and now I'm making dinner for Mom. It's something nice, and I'm sure she'll love it. Thank you for all of your perspectives and taking time out of your day to respond to my mess up. This is a You're the Jerk. Mother's Day is about your mom, and she's barely in the post. You were asked to make her breakfast on the one day of the year that she celebrated. You should absolutely have done it. It's not about your dad's behavior or how you chose a photo frame, buddy. It's about being a grateful son. You're the jerk. You could have cooked breakfast for your mom. You slept for 6 hours and could have slept the rest of the day after making breakfast if you were so tired. How often do you think your mom was tired when she got up to make breakfast for you? Info. You say that you helped to pick out the present for your mom. Did you just pick out the present, or did you also pay for it? You're the jerk. How many days do you think your mom got up and took care of y'all on no sleep? This whole post is whining about how you had to do a bunch of stuff for your mom and who got credit and blah blah blah. Dude, I bet your mom does so much for y'all. Instead of waking up and making her eggs, you ticked off your dad, and now you're on Reddit upsetting other moms on Mother's Day. Over eggs. Get some perspective beyond yourself. It will do you well. I guess Mother's Day is the one day of the year the Reddit people actually side with people's moms. Am I the jerk for shaming my mother about not taking care of our kids? My sister just had her first kid. I have 2 kids who are 6 and 9. My mother was never a hands-on grandma, which is completely fine. I learned my lesson early on about asking her to babysit. She would either tell me yes and cancel at the last minute, or get mad at me for even asking. Now, this by itself wouldn't be a huge deal. However, my mother was the kind of mother who would drop us off at our grandparents all the time. Holidays, we'd get dropped off the second day off and picked up 3 days before school started. We spent every weekend with them. Grandma would pick us up from school and make us lunch. And besides that, every time one of us asked her to babysit, she said,
I already raised my kids.
even if we were just asking her to keep an eye on the kid while we hopped to the store. So it really is the hypocrisy that gets me. Not her not babysitting. I couldn't care less about that. So my sister had her first kid about 4 months ago. We had a family dinner on Friday where everyone got to meet the baby. So we were all mingling, and my sister asked Mom at one point if she could watch the baby on Friday for 1 hour so she could pick up her mother-in-law from the airport. My mom started to say her usual sentence, and my brothers and I jumped in and finished the sentence with her and laughed. My brother then offered to watch the baby. He thought it was over, but Mom was offended and went on a long rant about disrespect. My sister was confused and said, I just thought you might want to bond with your granddaughter. To which I said, she didn't even raise us. What makes you think she wants to spend time with our kids? I admit I was mad because she was acting like she was that martyr who never had time for herself, when she literally never had us, and when she did, my older brother and I took care of everything in the house, including childcare and house stuff. Obviously, my mother got furious, saying that I was ungrateful. My older brother intervened and said that we weren't ungrateful, but we couldn't ignore the matter of fact. The fight escalated and my mother stormed off. My father called us and told us that it was entitled to shame Mom for not babysitting. Are we the jerks? Edit. My father is not mentioned because the story is not about him, and it doesn't make sense to talk about him. There's more to the story with him, of course, but this story was about an interaction with us and our mom. The only involvement our father had was the short call at the end. That's why he isn't mentioned much. Not the jerk. As long as it's okay for people to not be natural caregivers, it is not to be a non-caregiver and wanting to be treated like the saint who sacrifices for everyone. She had all the help in the world when you were kids, and now she's acting as if you guys asking for help is entitlement, and it's not. It's a basic thing. You're not asking her to take weekends, school breaks, etc. You've asked for basic help that any normal parent would be willing to provide. I see other people's point by saying she's not required to babysit her grandkids, but if she was a decent person, she would. Probably an unpopular opinion, but that's how I see it. We want to go on about how it takes a village, etc. But as soon as grandma doesn't want to babysit, it's not her job. Plus, the shaming doesn't even seem to be about her not watching her grandkids. It was based off her not watching her own kids, which is valid. Micromanager forced to step down after mismanaging a new retail service. Relevant background info first. Several years ago, I was working at one of the big hardware stores in my area. It's a household name and had some upward mobility with decent pay for the area. I never really found a niche there after my first year and a half. I learned quickly though, so they kinda made me a Swiss Army employee. I could work hardware, plumbing, mix paint, make keys, prepare contracts for installs, and knew all of the features and flaws of the appliance models we sold. I was happy to do this because I was building a reputation as someone who could do everything. 2 years in, a new program was implemented that I was uniquely qualified to assist with. They created a new position for me. It was marketed as an all-in-one renovation remodel service for interiors. I was to assist the designer with product selection, product information, contracts, and local marketing for this service. Everyone involved was super excited about it. Note, I was still only making $10 an hour in 2015 for this. The problem was that because this was brand new, no one knew how it should work. The designer basically had to figure it out for herself while I tried to catch her up with all of the store and product knowledge I had accumulated during my unique experience with the company. Issues with the program. 1. It was way too expensive. 2. Product to be used had to come from one of our stores, which was limiting. 3. No one knew about it. It was a rocky start. Coworkers would call me over to talk to customers if they mentioned working on a big project, but that's all we had. No completed jobs to reference or anything provided by corporate to get us running. We made our own stuff. I put together a video advertising the service and got the nod from management to use company card to purchase a TV and media player to roll the video on repeat. We built vignettes in the store to showcase our design ability. I had been picking up a lot from the designer, so it ended up being a partnership in effect. The micromanager. Enter Devin, the assistant manager. He had actually been involved in the project from the beginning and had been pretty supportive and brought good energy at first. But I think he got fed up with issues that we couldn't control. Sloppy contractors refusing to fix things that they messed up. Slow design process as customers worked out what they wanted and people just backing out after taking a bunch of our time when they saw the price. We were, on average, charging $3,000 more for a small bathroom remodel on labor alone. Consulting and design fees were also worked into the final cost. The product was discounted to basically being tax-free, but as I mentioned, options were limited to products the company sold. It was just too expensive to make many sales on the poor side of town, where almost everyone knows some kind of contractor or tradesman with connections. It wasn't a good market for this program, but we did manage to start hitting and exceeding our numbers. Number 7 in the region for the brand new program was not bad, and just when we finally started getting some business and a rhythm around 8 months in, Devin decided that it was not working fast enough for him. Obviously, the designer was to blame, since he had no authority over the contractors or setting prices. She didn't know what she was doing, and he was going to make some changes. He honestly didn't do much besides hover, bring bad energy, and make terrible suggestions. He didn't understand the scope of what we had to do to get a customer out the door and happy. He forced us to cut corners and get the sale as quickly as possible without concern for liability, for basically destroying a room in someone's home to remake it, or what was realistic in terms of timelines. Customers felt rushed and got nervous. They backed out. We came to a standstill. We would only have 2 or 3 designs in progress at a time, but suddenly, after working our butts off building the program, we had no customers for the first time in 6 months. Obviously, Devin was not subjecting us to his authority hard enough, so he went harder and fired the designer. I lost my patience. Justice, or injustice, I don't know. I'm a chill dude, but I had been working my butt off for this company, making peanuts on the promise that I was working towards something. I endured working for the incompetent managers that got their positions because they started working there at 18 and made it their life. The toxic alpha male, I will lead, you will follow BS was too much, so I started bullying him back, making fun of him in a teasing way where he couldn't really react without looking bad or losing control. I did that for a while, and he left me alone to run the program in the interim since I was the only option. The designer and I had become friends though, so I was still mad about how it went down. I wasn't finished yet, but I didn't know what to do. Eventually, they got another designer, and Devin had me moved back to what I had been doing before. Passed over for several promotions that I was more than qualified for. The market had been flooded with longtime employees that were being moved around. Bad luck, but I was done with the place. One day I got an email with an anonymous review your manager survey. The store computers were set up with an always-on and logged-in user profile, so I wrote down the link and verified with a coworker that they weren't unique. In every department I visited that day, I wrote a review for Devin. All different ratings, but I made the good ones so that they sounded bad, but as if I didn't know it was bad. I did that maybe 10 times. It wasn't character assassination or anything, just opinion-based stuff with some vague examples so no one could figure out it was me. I didn't lie either. I just said what people don't usually say out loud. He would barely look at anyone after that. A couple of weeks later, he resigned his position as assistant manager and took an exterior design position at the other end of the store, as far away from the departments he had been over before. Basically, the same thing as what we had done with interiors, but he was in the designer's shoes. I left a couple of months later to work tech support for DHS, but while I was still in training for that, my friends from the store told me that he had gotten fired. Maybe he learned something. He should have at least learned how my designer friend felt. They were both fired on Christmas. My stepbrother stole my investment car and crashed it. A few years ago, I got a nice bonus in a major sales year, and I made a really smart investment decision with it. I'm a big car guy. During a dip in the exotic car market, I was presented with an insane private market deal on an extremely rare manual transmission supercar. Original owner was a friend in a car club who passed. His kids handled the sale. I had just enough cash available for a down payment to buy it as an investment. Not ready to disclose the model just yet. Fellow gearheads can probably guess. But it's one of less than 200 remaining in North America, low mileage, all original without a hint of damage. I honestly rarely even drive the thing myself. It's just too valuable at this point, worth more than triple what I paid for it. Let's just say it's easily valued north of $600,000 right now. Or at least it was. Last weekend, I was out of town. My idiot 17-year-old stepbrother had his prom, and decided to borrow it for the evening. I don't think he was even drinking. The car is just not easy to drive. It doesn't have any safety features, and it's tough to handle for anyone less than an experienced driver. He ended up misshifting, spinning it out, and causing a fair amount of damage. It was still drivable afterwards, and he brought it back to my garage, so no accident report was filed. But my cameras caught him leaving with it in pristine condition and returning it wrecked. I'm livid. My dad and stepmom are very apologetic, but aren't really taking much responsibility for what he did. Originally, they wanted me to try and claim it against my insurance, which I have no intention of doing. They eventually came back and offered to try and pay for the repair. I think it can be fixed for under $60,000, but finding parts for the thing isn't a cakewalk. My problem is the loss of value. I had a broker that specializes in these cars go over it with me, and he thinks, even expertly repaired, with the wreck and non-original parts, it will have lost at least $200,000 to $300,000 in value after being restored. My broker is going to provide me with a written loss of value estimate this week. I'm leaning towards demanding that amount from my family in restitution, or I can press charges for the theft of the vehicle. As far as I can tell, those are my two options to seek the full value of the investment. Just getting it repaired would mean taking a $250,000 loss when all is said and done. I know this would be a hardship, but my dad and stepfam won't exactly go hungry. They own a couple rental properties that they could sell to come up with the cash. But in discussing this with my sister, she thinks I'm being unreasonable to burden the family with such a major expense, and I should just let them pay to fix the car. I don't see how I can even remotely cover the loss I'm taking without pushing this ultimatum their way. Would I be the jerk? Edit, to clarify because I keep getting asked. The car was on my own property in my garage and was very well secured, but my dad had a key to the house that my stepbrother used to get in. He knew the alarm code and where the keys were hidden because he's family. Also, this probably wasn't too clear in the original post, but I'm not exactly wealthy or anything. At least not wealthy enough to afford my own supercar under normal circumstances. This was very much an investment towards retirement for me, hence why I almost never drive it. Not the jerk. I'd honestly have pressed charges already. He stole your car and caused massive damage, let alone the safety factor. He could have gotten himself and or others severely hurt operating a car that he had no business being behind the wheel of. Frankly, he's lucky that that was the worst that happened, and their apologies don't cover all that. You're being generous giving them different options to work it out that don't include charges. Also, what are they doing about him? Because if they haven't properly grounded him from literally everything, taken away his phone and any gaming devices, and told him he's getting a job to pay this back, it's not enough. Am I the jerk for not eating food my girlfriend's parents made at family dinner? My girlfriend of 4 years has a different cultural background than mine. Her parents are not from America, and family and meals are very important to them. I grew up in America, and while we had holiday dinners and maybe a Sunday dinner every couple of weeks, for the most part, mom or dad made something, and then we ate it where and when we wanted to. I eat dinner with my girlfriend's parents every week, and I love it. It's important to her, and I have no problem with different cuisines. It's all delicious food. However, I do not eat a lot. Growing up, I was very overweight and I saw a nutritionist, stuck to a calorie deficit and worked on my portions, and I've been at a healthy weight ever since. My relationship with food has changed, and I no longer have the desire to tear through 2 double quarter pounders anymore. My girlfriend's parents seem to get offended that I get small portions of things and don't fill my plate up a second time. They will make maybe 5 to 6 different food options, and I'll get a little bit of everything because I want to taste it all. At some point, every time I'm there, they ask me if I didn't like the food. They mention the small portions and how I never go back for more. I just honestly tell them that I don't overeat. They've never made a scene about it to me, but I guess they've been discussing it with my girlfriend while I'm not there. A couple of days ago, my girlfriend told me that her parents feel offended over how little I eat, which, a little, is a 100% full plate with a bit of everything made. And some days I eat less, and some days I eat more. It really depends. If I skipped breakfast, had a light lunch, I might fill up more for dinner. But if, for example, I got a decent breakfast, work catered sandwiches that day, I'm going to have a normal, small-sized dinner. My general goal is to have equal-sized meals each time, but with a busy work life, that is not always possible. So some days I didn't have any food until family dinner, and I'm eating more than usual. My girlfriend asked me if it was possible that I could eat a bit more just for them one day a week. She didn't push or demand, Just asked if it was possible. I told her that I don't want to ruin my mended relationship with food. I don't understand why the parents are so offended. I always pack up Tupperware and eat it throughout the week because it's delicious food. I don't want to disrespect her parents though. Edit. Another odd thing I want to add. They will make comments about my girlfriend, who's in great shape, that she is putting on weight sometimes, but also pressure her to fill her plate twice. I don't get it. Edit. I know you mean well, but the idea of pretending to eat or getting a small plate and going back to get another small plate is just silly to me. I get that all cultures are different. I eat all the different food they serve and follow their religious codes when I'm in their house. But the idea of taking someone's autonomy and having to fake like I'm getting more seconds is just so ridiculous to me. Also, didn't know so many people would relate to being force-fed and then scolded for being overweight. As a Midwest American, I've never experienced this. It sounds so toxic that so many people can relate to that and the issues that I've struggled with myself. If my parents behaved in that way, it would have really messed up my relationship with food even more. But I guess nothing says showing love to someone like fattening them up and then scolding them for the natural weight gain that you caused. Not the jerk. My extended family is this way culturally, and it is considered offensive to them if you reject food or don't gorge yourself. But culture can't be prioritized over your boundaries and well-being. This is a good compatibility test for you and your girlfriend. It will be uncomfortable for her, but I hope she chooses to back you up. Am I the jerk for leaving my best friend and his friends stranded in an unfamiliar city? So for background, my best friend has gotten into going to these Spartan races. He and a small group of his friends have started going to local ones, but recently heard about one in another state they wanted to go to and compete in, but they didn't have anywhere to stay. So they asked me if they could borrow my truck and trailer. I have a tow-behind camper for the weekend. I said no, I wasn't comfortable with them taking my truck and trailer, but that I'd drive them and the camper to their event. We made the 3-hour trip and set everything up in the area where the race was taking place the next day. I have a habit of leaving my keys on a hook next to the door to my bedroom in my camper. Remember this. Come nightfall, I went to take a phone call outside and ended up wandering around the grounds for over an hour. When I got back to the camper, the door was locked, and I was told by my best friend's older friend through the window that there wasn't enough room for me in my trailer. So I reached for my keys to unlock the door, but realized I had left them inside the camper on the hook in my room. So I called my best friend from outside, and all I was told was, "Sorry bro, nothing I can do." So I ended up sleeping in my truck that night, which I had fortunately left unlocked by accident. Their race began at 8 a.m., and at 7 they came meandering out of the trailer and woke me up. No apology, by the way. So while they were in their race, I hooked my truck back up to the trailer, closed and locked everything, and waited until just after they finished and had started walking back to the trailer. Think really wide open field. When I saw them coming, I started the truck and drove off the property with them chasing behind. I made the 3-hour trip back home, declining call after call. When I finally got home, I finally took my best friend's call. He started yelling at me saying, "Why would you do this? We have no way home now." I just said, "Sorry, you shouldn't have made me sleep in my truck after I did you this favor." He told me that there were better ways to handle this than by leaving them in an unfamiliar city with no way home. I think he ended up calling his dad to come and get them. Is he right? Was there a better way to handle this? I felt justified until he said that. I am kind of doubting my decision now. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They're Spartan warriors, right? They should run home. Not the jerk. Was there a more adult way to deal with this? Definitely. Did they deserve to be treated like adults after the disrespectful and childish stunt they pulled? No. Forget those guys. They got what they deserved. Was there a more adult way to handle this? I'm legitimately torn on this. I'm not convinced there's a way OP could have handled this which would have taught these jerks a lesson or been better all told. Anything less than this would have likely led to these jerks feeling they got away with their behavior and wouldn't think twice about doing it again, if not to OP, then to someone else. Adults need adult consequences, and I'm not certain anything less than this would have been a true consequence for them. Not the jerk. Who tells someone they can't sleep in their own camper? He's not your best friend. I'm just really confused what these people's thought process was. They really thought they'd lock you out of your own camper and you'd smile and drive them all home? Was it harsh? Yes. Did they deserve it? Also yes. They're grown. They can find their own way home. Not the jerk. OP. I've been trying to practice the mental gymnastics it takes to come to that conclusion as well in my own head, and I just can't do it. Karen is blaming me for what her dog ate. Now he might not survive. I was hosting a big garden party this weekend. I invited my entire friend group plus their partners. One of my friends takes her dog everywhere. I told her no pets were allowed. Although it was a garden party, we were in and out of my home, and I have 4 cats. My cats do not like dogs, and neither do I. Anyway, my friend showed up with her dog. I told her that her dog was not welcome in my home or my garden, and I asked her to please take her dog home or elsewhere. I thought my friend left. I went inside to sort out some things. I went into my garden about 15 minutes later, and my friend was standing there in my garden talking to our friends. She doesn't live that close, so I was confused. I went to ask her how she got back so quickly, and she told me she was just popping in and that she was going to go home since her dog isn't welcome. I asked her where her dog was, and she shrugged her shoulders and said that he was around. I went looking and found him at the bottom of the garden eating my crops and making a mess. I was angry and told my friend to get her dog off my property. A few hours later, she called me asking what my dog ate. I had no clue. My gardener plants and attends everything. I told her I didn't know, but I told her that he had made a huge mess, dug things up, and clearly eaten things. She shouted at me that her dog is sick and that I need to find out what the dog ate. I told her I had no idea, but I'd text the gardener to ask, but it was really her problem. I did send the text, but my gardener didn't answer. My friend called again, wanting to know what her dog ate, but I told her I still didn't know. She told me I obviously don't care if her dog makes it and called me a jerk. I still don't know what her dog ate, but apparently he's very sick and he might not make it. I feel bad, but I told her not to bring the dog onto my property, so I don't feel responsible like she says I am. Am I the jerk? ETA. After being unable to reach my gardener, I took pictures of everything the dog dug up, which was a lot, and sent them to my friend. But I have no idea what he ate and what it dug up. And for all I know, whatever he ate isn't even pictured because the whole section is a mess. This wasn't good enough for her. She wants me to tell her exactly what he ate, and I just don't know and don't want to spend hours trying to figure it out when I don't even know if it can be figured out. Edit 2. My cats are house cats. They don't go in my garden and aren't at risk of getting sick from whatever my gardener is growing. My garden is huge, and what's growing changes often, so no, I don't keep track of what's planted. Update. I blocked my ex-friend after dozens of nasty calls and texts, but I got an update from a mutual friend. The dog is at the dog hospital and he's pretty sick, but is expected to make a full recovery. I managed to contact my gardener eventually. It looks like the dog ate some potatoes or something. A lot was destroyed, so even my gardener isn't 100% sure what was eaten, but he thinks maybe the pesticides were the problem. All info from gardener was passed to my ex-friend. Ex-friend has seen this post and is very angry about it. Everyone say hi to Suzanne. Not the jerk. You asked her nicely not to bring the dog, but yet she did. You asked her to leave, but yet she didn't. She wasn't even watching her dog. If her dog doesn't make it, it's on her. I love dogs. Yes, I'm one of those people who likes animals more than other people. People suck. I do not like OP's friend. She's not a dog person. A dog person would pay attention to what their dog was doing, would never take their dog into a situation where they're not wanted, and would never let their dog off leash in a large garden where they don't know what plants are around and what could be toxic to their dog. Not the jerk, OP. I know that you'll feel bad if the dog doesn't make it. It just did what dogs do. Your friend is the problem. I mostly just feel sorry for the dog having such an irresponsible parent. Your yard wasn't dog safe, but you made it pretty clear the dog was not welcome. Your friend ignored that, and it's her dog who almost paid the price for it. Super sad, and you're not the jerk. Your friend is a super duper mega jerk though. She's saying you don't care if her dog makes it, but she ought to look at herself. Poor doggo deserves better. Am I the jerk for splashing women with water at the pool? I'm female 31, and swimming is my hobby and how I keep healthy. My favorite swimming pool is a local university pool. As a graduate, I have access, but they also have community hours for when people from the town can pay and swim. It doesn't do lane swimming, but typically everyone knows how to stay away from those doing laps. I was doing laps at the far end with the pool wall on my side, so I couldn't move if I wanted to. I was mid-session when 2 women my age jumped right in front of me and just stood there by the wall on the shallow end. I couldn't stop in time and pushed from the wall between them, forcing them to move aside. I was being more careful next lap, but they just kept standing there. There was plenty of space on the other side of the pool where they could stand and chat without bothering anyone, but they chose to stand right in front of me. So I continued swimming, pushing from the wall. If they refused to move, I just turned in water, making sure to make a big splash. I took a break to drink some water, and one of them started screaming at me about how I got her hair all wet. I told her it's her fault, and I continued swimming. She waited for me in the changing rooms and went on about how I was inconsiderate and I ruined her hair. I told her to buzz off. She started going off at me and started screaming, calling me a jerk. I grabbed my stuff and went to one of the cubicles to have a shower and change. When I was leaving, they were talking to the manager. One of them was crying about their hair. I told my sister and she thinks I was the jerk, but I didn't think so before. Now, with my sister agreeing, I worry that I might have been. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to add, I was the only person there when they came in. They had the whole pool to stand. They chose purposefully to stand in front of me without swimming at all. Edit 2. The pool is 25 meters long and you swim lengthwise from deep to shallow end and back. They had the whole shallow end wall free except for the meter or so I used for kicking off. I didn't take the whole shallow end. Who would do laps there except for kids? Edit 3. While there's no designated lap lanes, lap swimming isn't forbidden. Typically, during open swim, 75% of swimmers do lap swimming. They weren't older ladies. They were about my age, early 30s. I didn't leave the pool to grab water. I had water on the edge, along with my other stuff for drills or my earplugs, etc. This is perfectly normal and acceptable. If you go to a pool but don't want to get your hair wet, you wear a hair cap. Simple as that. You already were there. Those two had all the pool space, but chose to stand there and get mad at you for something they could have avoided in more than one way. Not the jerk. Oh no, my hair got wet. Ma'am, this is a pool. OP, out of curiosity, did you ask if they would mind moving elsewhere so that you wouldn't accidentally splash them? I mean, not the jerk, and anyone with a lick of common sense and not insanely entitled would move on their own, but you didn't mention that you spoke to the women. Still, it's ridiculous that they're upset that they got wet in a pool, especially as you were there first and they clearly saw you doing laps. How entitled were those ladies to plop themselves in front of a person doing laps and then get angry that they got splashed? And tell your sister that you are very upset that she sided with these ladies who purposefully blocked your laps when you were there first. Am I the jerk for leaving my brother's kids and hanging out with my boyfriend? My brother Derek is 27 and has been married to his wife, Sophie, not real names, who's 26 for 2 years, and they have 2 kids, a 4-year-old son and a 6-month-old daughter. They never really had much money, and recently they had to move back in with my parents. I also live with my parents and just finished my first year at community college. I'm 19, female. When my siblings moved out, my parents gave me the master bedroom, but when Derek and Sophie moved in, I got moved to a smaller room and they got the master bedroom. None of it bothered me because they're going through a hard time, but Sophie gave me a schedule and said that this is the kids' daily routine. I asked what she meant, and she said it's for when she's at work. I told Sophie that I'm not going to watch her kids, and I never said I was. My mom told me that she meant to talk to me about it, and basically, because class is over and my parents work full-time, I should watch their kids. If Derek and Sophie asked me, I would have said no, because I work part-time in the evening and I'm really stressed, but they could have at least asked instead of just assuming I would. Yesterday, Sophie thanked me for watching her kids and left before I could say anything, so I called my best friend and told her that my brother would pay her when he got home. I spent the entire day with my boyfriend. I got a call from my brother yelling at me, saying that I put his kids in danger. My friend is getting an early childhood education degree. She does babysitting regularly, and she's great with kids. When I got home, Derek and Sophie yelled at me, saying that they couldn't afford a babysitter and that I'm selfish, but I knew that if I just watched the kids, they would use me like that all summer. My dad agrees with me, but my mom says I could have just watched them. I would like everyone to know that my friend was paid. I would never ever let her go unpaid, but my brother did not have the extra money to spare. My friend also knew a little before I left the kids with her, and now she knows everything. My mother's really upset with me for going away after my sister's mental breakdown. My brother made a bunch of investments, and he's in a lot of debt. I told Sophie that she could put them in daycare, but she didn't want to do it because it would corrupt them. Also, my friend charged him $35. It would have been more, but because I'm her friend, she gave them a discount. Edit. I did this post in a rush while I was mad. I'm also new to Reddit. I wanted to get the lingo right. I was going to fix the grammar, but now I'm not, because if that's what you're worried about, you missed the point. Go get the list of kids' routines and put the cost on each of them. Then give it back to them. Since you guys assume I work for you, here's my rates. Not the jerk. You are absolutely right. They're trying to push you into free childcare duty all summer for kids who aren't even yours. I would not agree, and I would let them know that you will be out of the house all day every day, so they'd better come up with a paid babysitter to watch their kids or put them in actual childcare. And then make good on your promise and go to the library or a coffee shop every day for at least a week or two until they find someone to watch their kids. Not your responsibility. Woman wasn't expecting she would be having a riding buddy. This malicious compliance takes place in the Czech Republic, where many people are often really grumpy. My girlfriend, who's 30, and I, male 21, were waiting for a bus ride to go to her hometown for a wedding. As you'd expect, we had 3 bags, and they were packed to the point where zipping the bag required you to sit on it, especially her bag, as she was one of the bridesmaids. Before we boarded the bus, we had to wait for the passengers who had paid beforehand to reserve seats. My girlfriend and I had not prepaid. We were in somewhat of a line, which allowed for the passengers who reserved seats to pass. The line for unreserved seat passengers was essentially respected, except by this woman. She arrived when the line was somewhat being formed and decided to stand next to us. As our turn to board was coming up, she quickly scooted in front of my girlfriend and looked forward as if she was completely oblivious to the fact she had done something that was traditionally frowned upon. My girlfriend was obviously quite annoyed and started saying out loud, in English, much of the older generation in this country doesn't understand English very well. Well, that's a jerk thing to do. Can you believe this woman? I was calm as I had counted how many people had already boarded the bus, and there was still a good chance we'd find seats together in the unreserved rows, so I didn't think it called for any type of confrontation. Still, I had calmly responded, "Let's be honest, we can't be surprised when jerks do jerk things." Looking back, it was unnecessary, but I also was tired and the bags were heavy, so I was a bit impatient. We finally sit down and my girlfriend chose to sit in the 2 free seats behind her. I would have chosen the seats in front of her and then just slowly reclined my seat back every few minutes so that she wouldn't have noticed my little act of revenge, but this ended up being better. It's important to note that the row this woman chose was the last row with an overhead shelf for bags. The shelf was a little longer in the front, so every person essentially had space for their bag if they moved their bags a little towards the front of the bus. It's also important to mention that the shelf was essentially empty, and I could have placed another 5 bags next to ours if I wanted to. We finally hit the road, and the woman is talking on the phone. Loudly, I might add, saying how she's going to visit her grandson who is so sweet, but that he plays metal music in his room and she can't stand the sound of it. After she finishes the call, she takes off her windbreaker and plans to put it above her seat. She finally sees that my bag is directly above her seat, and instead of moving her jacket 35 centimeters to the right on the shelf or setting her jacket on the empty seat beside her, she decides to confront me in an entitled tone.
Excuse me, young man, but I can't put my jacket anywhere because your fat bag is in the way.
I was bored, so decided to act like this was a tragedy. Oh no, what will we do? Maybe if we put our heads together, we can find a solution. Her face turned from shock to old grandma rage. She yelled back,
Well, don't you know that the shelf space is for the person directly below the seat?
"Oh, I'm sorry. I truly didn't know that was like an unspoken rule. So the space above your seat is only for you and the potential passenger next to you?" I say, truly acting sorry and embarrassed.
Yes it is. So please move it to your spot,
she says, acting victorious. Of course, right away. I quickly get up and take my girlfriend's bag off the shelf and place it on the seat where I was sitting next to her. I keep my bag in the exact same spot and plop myself right next to the old woman with a grin. The look on her face was absolutely priceless as she was trying to understand what just happened. I smile at her, take my headphones out, and play some death metal way too loud so that she can definitely hear it. I might have hearing loss. I don't even like death metal, but it was definitely worth it knowing she was annoyed the whole time. My girlfriend was sad I didn't sit next to her for the bus ride, but she ultimately agreed it was the best way to get back at her. P.S. This is my first post on Reddit, so I hope I chose the right place to put it. Am I the jerk? I didn't include a group member's name in a group project. I had a very difficult final assignment which happened to be group work. We didn't get to pick our groups and it was all random. This assignment was worth 24% of our grades and it mattered a lot. When it was announced that it would be group work, one of my classmates, let's call her Anne, had a very happy reaction to it, which is fine, but her reasoning was that group work assignments make her relieved because she can always be sure her work is correct at the end with no worries. This made me mad since I've worked with this girl on 2 other projects that same semester and her work was absolutely horrible. She always finished her portion minutes before submission time and I always had to change it, a lot, because it was often incorrect. I even took many of her parts because I simply couldn't trust her work, so her saying that she's relieved that this assignment was a group project made me so mad. Unfortunately, once the teams were announced, I ended up with her in a group again. I think because our names are close alphabetically. But I was fine with it since the other 2 were smart students. When time came for us to start working on this assignment, I noticed that she always responded to the group chat and I was happy with her contribution until the day we worked on it came. I sent a Zoom link for all of the group members to join so we could start and finish our assignment that day. It was short, but really complicated assignment. But this time, Anne didn't respond to anything despite the fact that she agreed the day prior to the timing we picked. She didn't join any second of the meeting. When we finished the assignment, which took us around 5 to 6 consecutive hours, we created a cover page and included all of our names, including Anne's. But after we left the meeting, I removed Anne's name and waited until everyone in my group submitted it to completely delete the document. Around the same time, Anne messaged the group chat saying she was feeling a bit sick and went to the hospital. My other team members told her it's fine and assumed she still had access to the document. But when she tried looking for it, she couldn't find it and asked me to send her a copy, which I did, but it wasn't related to our assignment at all. Of course she wouldn't know since she didn't contribute to it. The grades were released and Anne failed that course because of that assignment. My other group members are calling me a jerk for removing her name secretly and lying about the document, and that she was sick and had an excuse, but I don't believe an ounce of it. Edit. As I've said in the comments, I should have been the bigger person and made everything work without sabotaging. Actually, people were surprised with what I did since it really isn't like me and I'm usually a shy people pleaser. Even my friends that I told this story to said that. But I've been taken advantage of many times, especially academically, and I always gave in and I took on all of the weight myself. I'm really bad at standing up for myself since I rarely do it, and the way I handled this situation proves it. Since I rarely do it, I went hard this time and didn't notice the extent until I read everyone's judgment on here. I genuinely thought I wasn't the jerk, but now I'm viewing it in a completely different way. I hope both Anne and I learned from this situation and the mistakes that we made, and I think we were both being jerks here and we both handled the situation incorrectly. Of course you're the jerk. You should have at least checked with the other group members. Instead, you played God. You should have discussed this problem with the instructor when the groups were announced. There may have been a solution that didn't include underhanded, lying submissions. You have ruined your reputation with everyone that knows. Who will want to work with you going forward? You're the jerk. Secretly sabotaging a group member. Nasty. The adult approach would have been raising it directly with that particular group member and then the rest of the team. It's meant to be teamwork for a reason, so that each can learn to effectively produce within a team dynamic. You acted unilaterally. You failed the assignment.
Bruh, what's wrong with you people on Reddit? You really think someone deserves to get a good grade when they didn't even contribute to the project? Something tells me y'all were the same ones who liked group projects because you thought you didn't have to do anything.
Calm down now, Karen. You're talking way too much common sense. Do you know how many people are going to get mad at you?
I don't care anymore, Reddit boy. You can't live your life trying to be liked by people who don't have common sense.
Well, yeah, but what if we lose subscribers?
Then maybe we'll gain some who have common sense. Subscribe now if you're not an idiot.
Yowza kanowza. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that she's not allowed to meet our kids anymore? My husband and I have 2 kids, 5, daughter, and son, who's 8. After a very horrible birth with my elder one, I decided I'm not ready to go through that again, but we still wanted more kids. So 5 years ago, we adopted. My mother-in-law cares for our family, but she makes her preference for Malcolm more than clear. To begin, she was absolutely furious hearing that I would not be having another biological kid and was instantly disapproving. After hearing we were going to adopt, her anger turned into rage. She screamed about how we didn't know the parentage of the kid and might end up bringing in someone who would disgrace her lineage. My husband was able to calm her down. Thankfully, when she saw little Julia, it seemed like this was all behind us. Yesterday, mother-in-law decided to visit us. My husband was away on a trip, so she was just helping around. I was absolutely exhausted, so I asked if I could go down for a nap, and she was more than green. After a few hours, she woke me up and informed me that she was about to leave. All was good. I was cooking in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I hear a loud bang, preceded with a crying Julia. When I rushed into the hall, I see Malcolm towering over me.
"You're not real. All of this is mine."
He started screaming, which was incredibly confusing to say the least. After calming them down, I asked Malcolm what he meant. He then revealed that Grandma Muriel had told him that he was Mommy and Daddy's real son. This made me incredibly mad. I asked him what else Grandma had told him, and he told me all about how she had been telling him that Julia wasn't really his sister, and how he should get extra attention for being extra special, how he's always going to be Grandma's favorite grandson, and so much more. Blinded with rage, I blocked Muriel on everything after sending her a text detailing her actions and how this was absolutely unacceptable, and how she'd never be seeing her grandkids until they're much older and understand the situation so they wouldn't be swayed by her words. I probably overreacted, to be fair. She is quite an old lady. After he returned, we got into quite the argument. To say the least, my husband disagreed. He adores his mother and told me that stopping her from seeing the kids is inhumane. She's simply old-fashioned, and she didn't know her words would bring this big of an impact or some such. We will be having a civil discussion about this later. Edit. I'm sorry I didn't clarify this earlier, but both Julia and Malcolm know that she's adopted. I've had this conversation with both the kids, although I've had it separately with both of them. I think I might have to have this conversation once again and make sure Julia knows that it doesn't matter whether she's adopted or not. You have a serious problem in your family, and you need to get into counseling to fix it immediately before he ruins your daughter's life. And you need to prepare for the fact that your husband may never really love or protect her, and you will have to be the one who protects her from both of them, not the jerk. You can either support me in my decision to hold your mother accountable for her actions, or I will file for divorce. This is a hard deal breaker for me. What your mother did was unforgivable in my eyes, and I will not allow our kids to be raised to think they aren't really brother and sister because your ignorant mother thinks our adopted kid is less than our biological one. So you need to pack a bag and go stay somewhere else, because I can't even look at you right now. I am beyond disappointed that you don't see anything wrong with what your mother said or did, or the fact that your son acted like this because of it. Pull your head out of your backside, or I will do what I have to do to protect our kids, even if that means ending this marriage. Not the jerk. OP. I think this might just be where this goes. If my husband doesn't agree to cut her off of our kids, I'm done. Their mental health, happiness, and relationship with each other is more important than a husband who won't see that he's actively hurting by neglecting them, more so also ruining her perception in front of his son. Thank you for this comment. Also, it doesn't really matter whether or not your mother-in-law understands what kind of impact this could have on Julia. Her intentions honestly don't mean anything, because no matter the intention, the outcome will be the same for Julia, believing that she's a second-class citizen. But hey, good to know that your husband apparently cares more about his mother's feelings than your daughter's, who is 5 and could develop serious problems from this. It honestly sounds like he expects to just have Julia suck it up or understand that grandma is old and doesn't mean it. But why is expecting so much emotional maturity from a literal 5-year-old while expecting none from his own mother? Am I the jerk? My husband says I was being ungrateful for his Mother's Day efforts. I say that there almost was no effort. My husband is my kids, who's 11, daughter, and 14, son, stepdad. He's been with me since they were 4 and 7. Mother's Day comes. I get up first, make coffee. Husband gets up an hour later, and little by little the kids get up. By 10 a.m., I've gone to the gym and we're doing yard work. 14-year-old took his headphones off long enough to ask me when I was running him to a friend's graduation party later. At one point, about 9, I had mentioned to him the kids hadn't even acknowledged Mother's Day at all. He went into 11-year-old's room to tell her to make me a card, apparently. He did get me flowers on Friday and chocolate-covered strawberries and a mini cake. I would like to point out now that I'm diabetic. And not only that, he has told me that my lack of care for my diabetes, I hadn't been maintaining my sugar at all, trying to get on track. My diet and my weight have been making him feel completely disrespected because it's important his partner care for herself. By 10 a.m., I was putting yard waste in a bag and he asked me what was wrong. I told him that no one had acknowledged the day at all. His exact words were, "Did you seriously need me to actually say the words?" And it was said in a very angry tone. Then he had gone on about how my daughter was drawing a card as we speak and how he tried to make the day special when he got me flowers and the stuff I wasn't supposed to eat on Friday. Later, I sent the 14-year-old to walk to Walgreens to get a card for his friend's graduation party and a Mother's Day card for his grandmother. He does not bother to get me a card. The day before, husband took 11-year-old to the mall for something to do during a power outage. Didn't get me a card, etc. Later, I made a comment at dinner with my mom and brother. Look, my brother got me a card, and he was upset and made a quiet reply. You seriously needed me to get you a card? He says I'm being ungrateful for their earlier efforts. I see it as zero effort. I have also told him point blank, very plainly, that there are 4 days a year that yes, I expect a card. Valentine's Day, anniversary, Mother's Day, and my birthday. We also had this exact fight last year. Am I really being unreasonable and ungrateful? Am I the jerk? You're ungrateful for what? Getting flowers 2 days before Mother's Day? No simple acknowledgement to wish you a happy Mother's Day? Not getting you a card when you previously told him you expected one? Then his passive-aggressive questions? You seriously need me to? Nope. Not the jerk. Your husband is. Not the jerk. Put exactly the same amount of effort and thought into Father's Day. Hand him a dandelion on Friday before, because nothing else says thinking of you like a single dandelion. Give him something to eat that isn't perfect for his health or his lifestyle. Mention that he needs to watch what he eats because it's part of his responsibility as a partner to take care of himself and not disrespect you by letting himself go physically. And then the day of, feel free to ignore the whole thing completely. People like this get mad because they put zero effort in and then get upset when their lazy, zero effort day gets called out. Neighbors' kids are demanding to use our pool. Should we just let them? I, 37 male, moved into a small neighborhood with my fiance, who's 36. The neighborhood is full of kids around the ages of 9 and 10. We found out that my fiance is expecting, and we both decided on wanting a pool. I had an above-ground pool put in last year, and the neighborhood kids were very happy. I told them no dogs were allowed in the pool, as the lining was fragile and it could break. This year, I opened the pool, and the kids used it while we were away. When we got back, I noticed the water level was low, and I tried to refill it. I saw a good-sized tear on the side and got it fixed. The kids came over the next day with a Labrador Retriever wanting to use the pool, and I told them that the pool was closed. I came home and saw a few of the neighbors arguing with my fiance. I walked over and everyone starts talking about how I hurt their kids' feelings by not allowing them to use the pool. I explained what happened and why I had to close the pool. A few of them started laughing and demand that I reopen the pool. My fiance thinks that I should open the pool and apologize to the families. Not the jerk. Who are the neighbors to demand that you open the pool? And I surely hope you strictly enforce the no dog rule. I'm also assuming you require at least one adult to be present at the pool at all times. Finally preparing to take my entitled mother-in-law to court, it's time for some serious payback. My partner, 30 male, and I, 25 female, started our relationship 5 years ago. When we met, I found out he shared a mortgage with mother-in-law because when her ex left, she couldn't hold the mortgage. Boyfriend had a good job and decided to step up. We hadn't met yet and he was single and living there, so he didn't think much of it, and that was his mom, and he's a wonderful son and person. I moved in with him after 7 months. I know that's pretty soon, but there were some unforeseen events that led me to just stay, and that's when I started to realize there was something really off about mother-in-law. To give a visual of the house, it's a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms upstairs, and 1 bedroom and bathroom downstairs. When I moved in, we lived in his bedroom upstairs. All downstairs was absolutely filled to the ceiling with junk and boxes, almost like an episode of Hoarders. Completely unlivable. There's also a laundry room down there, and that's where we all did our laundry. We were finally able to convince mother-in-law to get her crap out of the way so we could move downstairs and have a bit more privacy. There's a door leading into the living area of the downstairs, and she would use that to get to the laundry. We spent most of our time in the living area and got tired of her constantly coming through it, so I tried to talk and make a compromise. There were 2 other ways to get to the laundry room. One way is down the outside stairs and the laundry room door, and the other is through the garage and through the hall. I went and bought some curtains to set up on either side of the doors so she had her own special hallway. She kept coming through after agreeing to use the other ways. One day, we replaced the doorknob with a knob with a lock that locked from the inside. We had locked up and left the house for a few hours. When we got back, we found she had taken a butter knife and forced open the lock, something that could have easily been avoided. When we confronted her, she got on the floor and cried, and my boyfriend went over to comfort her. That's when I realized that she manipulates him. I only asked why she did that, and she broke down with crocodile tears. Eventually, I convinced boyfriend to get away and we moved into an apartment in town. It was bliss. I think from there, he started to gain a lot more confidence and stopped talking to mother-in-law as much. This was all 4 years ago. After we moved out, mother-in-law decided to spend a bunch of money and renovate the downstairs and make the house into a duplex-type situation, with her living in the bottom. It's separate now, and she's invading no one's space. She charges a tenant $2,200 to live upstairs, which pays her almost paid-off mortgage and all of her bills. Boyfriend is still on the title and mortgage of the house. When he was there, he was paying everything, including her phone bill. Another thing to add, mother-in-law does not work. So fast forward to now. I'm 2 months pregnant with boyfriend's baby. We're starting a family, and boyfriend has asked to move into the upstairs so we can have a bigger home to raise our baby in. She said no. We asked her to take his name off. Nope. She refuses to let him live in the house. She won't buy him out. She won't take his name off because that would mean she can't keep the house. She cannot keep the house without boyfriend. Her reasoning is that she wants to save for her retirement and she needs the $4,000+ a month she makes from the tenant, alimony, she wasn't even married to the guy, disability from the government, and other under-the-table work, while we are currently grasping at straws. My boyfriend has finally realized that his mother doesn't give any hoots about him or his kid, and now we are going to take her to court. The house is worth almost $700,000. We're going to force a sale for half. Basically, she's proved time and time again that she's a selfish, greedy woman who takes advantage of her son. Her other son does not talk to her or see her, even on holidays. We understand why now. I'm honestly just still in shock at the fact that after everything he's done for her, she won't do the same. Also, she has a lot of money. Edit. I don't in any way think I'm entitled to any of this money. I just say we out of habit because we are just a team with things, I guess. Court wasn't my idea. I try to leave any of that stuff up to him because it isn't my house. I'm just in here to share this story. Don't let her handle the sale. She'll sell it low out of spite or make a deal for money under the table. Karen doesn't believe in disciplining her kids, so I let them destroy the house. My brother, Casey, who's 32, is much older than me. I'm 17. He's married to my sister-in-law, Mandy, who's 36, and they have 2 kids. My nephew, Nick, who's 3.5, and my niece, Maya, who's 2. Mandy recently asked my parents if I could babysit Nick and Maya, since Mandy wanted to visit her mom and the original babysitter canceled last minute. I had never babysat Nick or Maya before. I honestly don't have any real experience in babysitting kids under 5, but my parents begged and offered to pay me, so I agreed. Babysitting Nick and Maya was a nightmare. They acted like they had never been told no or been forced to behave in their entire lives. Drawing on the walls with crayons and markers, trying to flush bath toys down the toilet, throwing themselves on the floor and screaming for candy, the list goes on and on. I called Mandy explaining what Nick and Maya were doing and that I was having them stand in the corner for a timeout. Mandy ended up coming home early, but not to deal with Nick or Maya. Instead, Mandy was angry with me and told me that I wasn't allowed to discipline them because I'm not their mother and I need to learn my place. The next weekend, last Friday, Mandy begged me to babysit Nick and Maya because she said that she wanted to visit her mom again and couldn't find another babysitter. My parents had me agree, and Mandy told me again that I was not allowed to discipline them. I'm pretty sure this is the real reason why she couldn't get an actual babysitter for them. Since Mandy said I couldn't discipline them, I decided to do as I was told. I watched them to make sure they didn't try and run away from home or anything, but otherwise, I left them to their own devices. The house was obviously a wreck by the time Mandy got home. Mandy was furious with me and tried convincing my parents to not pay me. My parents still paid me since a deal is a deal, but they said they were disappointed with me because even though Mandy's no discipline rule is silly, I had a dozen better ways of keeping my niece and nephew occupied, using an activity like crafts or hide and seek instead of being spiteful and immature and just letting them destroy the house. Casey hasn't said anything about it, but he is kind of an absentee father, to be honest. He spends most of his time at work. When he is home, he kind of just acts like the fun uncle while Mandy does the actual parenting. I'm looking for unbiased perspectives on here. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I find this to be hilarious. I'm a school teacher, and believe me, I can spot the kids who aren't told no and lack discipline on day 1. It's not cute. It sounds like Mandy needs parenting classes. Not the jerk. The kids are awful because of poor parenting on both parents' parts. And if you're not allowed to correct them, then so be it. Do not babysit for them anymore. If your parents want you to do it so badly, let them do it. Would I be the jerk for not attending my brother's birthday party because I can't bring my dog? I, 28 female, have a 3-year-old German Shepherd, Lou, who's the sweetest dog I've ever met. She's very cuddly and loving once she gets used to you. However, she was mistreated as a puppy and has separation anxiety. Edit. We've been working with a professional trainer and she's been making improvements. But currently, leaving her home alone for more than an hour simply isn't possible. Edit. My brother lives 45 minutes away. It's hard to gain her trust, so getting someone to watch her on short notice is nearly impossible. The last time I visited my brother, who's 39, his wife, who's 42, stepped on Lou's tail and quite obviously it hurt. She didn't bite or even try to do so, but she barked quite loudly before running to hide behind me. I asked my sister-in-law whether she was all right, and she said she was, so I didn't think anything else of it. After all, she had known Lou for almost 2 years before the incident. But when my brother invited me to his birthday party next weekend, he told me to leave Lou at home, and when I asked for the reason, he told me sister-in-law thought she was too aggressive to be around the guests. She isn't, but it's their house, their rules, and I want to respect their wishes. So I simply called my usual dog sitter, who told me that unfortunately they weren't available. Anyone else who has watched Lou in the past will also be at my brother's party, so I don't have anyone to watch her. I told my brother I could either A, bring Lou and keep her on a leash at all times, or B, take Lou with me and take turns with my mom walking her around the neighborhood so I could be able to stay a bit without his wife having to face my dog, or C, come over with Lou in the car to congratulate him and bring over his present, but leave shortly afterwards, as I don't want her to be alone in the car for more than 15 minutes. He told me that he didn't like any of these options because his wife didn't want my aggressive dog on their property, in their driveway, or in their neighborhood in general. I apologized and told him that if that was the case, I wouldn't be able to come at all. He's told me that he's disappointed, but especially my sister-in-law has been bombarding me with texts about how I was selfish for putting my dog before my brother, and that I was a jerk of a sister to do that to him on his 40th birthday. I think I've proposed reasonable enough compromises. Edit. And because all of them were declined, I don't see what other options I have left except for staying home. But in the end, I'd still like to hear the opinions of unbiased internet strangers to be sure. No jerks here. If they don't like any of the options you gave them, they shouldn't expect you to attend. Not wanting the dog in their neighborhood is a bit over the top. I know you love your dog, but if you can't leave it alone for over an hour, that's a big problem. You're making your life revolve around your dog. Pets should add to your life, not take things and people away from it. Please get help from a trainer to help your dog overcome its separation anxiety. Not the jerk. You were invited to the party. You can politely decline to go. I've not been on vacation for 4 years because I have a large house dog. She doesn't do well in hot weather. She has separation anxiety if I'm gone longer than 10 hours. She's okay with my in-laws, but starts to hunt for us after a few hours, so we simply don't go if we can't take her. Dogs are a commitment that you sign up for. No jerks here. Your dog is preventing you from attending some social event. If that's how you want your life to be, then it's only up to you. Sucks for your friends and family, but that's your decision. You cannot be forced to leave your pet behind, but you cannot force people to be around him. Am I the jerk for letting my daughter keep her sketchbook at my house after her mom looked through it without permission? So to start, I have 50-50 custody of my daughter, Claire, who's 12, with my ex-wife, Jessica. Jessica is married to Chris, who's 40, who has 2 kids, Addie, who's 7, and Luke, who's 10. Claire spends 1 week at my place, 1 week with her mom. Sunday is the swap day. 2 weeks ago, Claire had a huge fight with her step-siblings. Apparently, they snuck into her room when she was away and went through her stuff, breaking some of her important items in the process, and Claire screamed at them when she found out. Jessica and Chris wrote off Addie and Luke's behavior as kids will be kids. I disagree. I think that Addie and Luke need a reality check for their behavior and that they shouldn't get away with it. However, they said that Claire's reaction was over the top and a sign that there's something wrong with her. Jessica decided that she needed to find out what's in Claire's head, and so she confiscated Claire's sketchbook, which Claire uses to get her feelings out, and went through it. Apparently, what she found was disturbing. Claire has showed me her sketchbook before, and no it isn't, and took Claire to a psychologist for evaluation. Spoiler alert, they didn't even find anything. My daughter is completely mentally healthy, save for, surprise surprise, stress from her step-siblings. Anyway, I got Claire last Sunday, and she spent her first few hours with me holed up in her room, sketching, I think. At dinner, she told me what happened, and I surprised her with pancake breakfast the next morning to make her feel better. Before I gave her back to Jessica, Claire asked me to keep her sketchbook at my house so her mom wouldn't look through it. I said yes, and she went over to her mom's place without it. Yesterday, I got a text from Jessica. She said that she was worried that Claire forgot her sketchbook because when she went to confiscate it, it wasn't where Claire usually keeps it. She then asked me to arrange a time and place for her to pick it up. I said that the sketchbook was with me and that I decided to keep it because I didn't want it confiscated again. I didn't want to throw Claire under the bus here. In hindsight, lying probably wasn't the best idea. She said that I was being a jerk because she has a right to her daughter's mind. I said that I was worried because of how she handled it last time she went through it. She restated her previous point, and I did not respond. It's been about a day since that conversation, and I'm starting to question my choice. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and your ex has lost her marbles. OP, document everything. Their response to your daughter's very normal behavior and sibling stress is disturbing and suggests that she's being scapegoated over there, especially as they're excusing their other kids' behavior as normal, which means that they're excusing other behaviors too. Where will it end? I would encourage you to consult a lawyer and petition for full custody. You don't want to let this crap continue. Making your daughter out to be the villain in all of this, and this right to her mind nonsense, is screaming mental health issues with your ex. I grew up in a house like this, and I wish someone had been able to help me get out of it. Your daughter needs you to step up for her now. Be the parent that she needs. Not the jerk. This is the equivalent of reading her diary. It's a boundary that should not be crossed in the absence of absolutely dire circumstances, which you stated do not seem to be present. Keep being your kid's advocate. They need an adult they can trust to confide in them and keep them safe. You obviously have your daughter's trust. Do what you need to keep it. Am I the jerk for prioritizing my wife over my own mom on Mother's Day? I, 38 male, have been married to my wife, 36 female, for 12 years. We have 2 daughters who are 10 and 3. We both come from divorced families, and all of our parents have since remarried, though my mom's second husband passed a couple of years ago. My wife's parents are no longer local, but my mom and dad both live in the same metro area as us. I have a very good relationship with my dad and stepmom, and they are our sole support for helping out with the girls. My mom and I have an up and down relationship as a result of a lot of things over a lot of years. Nothing excessive, annoying stepdad, brother who's an addict, grandparenthood not meeting her expectations. My mom is also not an easy person to please. After years of running around and trying to accommodate everyone, lately I don't always put in the effort I should with her because often the effort isn't appreciated anyway. So for Mother's Day this year, I wanted to give my wife the day. But I didn't want to pressure her with coming up with a rigid plan. I asked her on Friday if she wanted brunch or dinner made and to let me know what she wanted to do with her day when she knew. I mentioned I would take the girls to see all of their grandparents in the middle of the day so she could have the house to herself if she wanted the peace, or we could go do something as a family. Again, no pressure. Just let me know as we go and I'll make it happen. She tells me Saturday brunch sounds good. So Sunday morning, the girls and I run to the store for supplies, make brunch, set out the gifts, we eat and play for a bit, and the wife mentions I could take the girls. I call up stepmom and I wish her a happy Mother's Day and ask if she's around. She is, so the girls and I stop by for a visit. Then I call my mom, and I can tell by how she answers the phone that she's annoyed. I wish her a happy Mother's Day and ask if she's available for a visit. She's at her sister's for brunch and won't be home until later when the 10-year-old has activities. Fast forward to Monday, and I get a text from my wife that my mom had sent a screenshot of my wife's post on social sharing about her day and told her she had a terrible day and didn't feel the love from anyone. So Reddit, am I the jerk for prioritizing my wife having a full day over doing something for my own mom? Not the jerk. Your mother just seems to be upset she isn't the center of attention. Not the jerk. You rang up your mom and asked if she was free to see you and the kids. Additionally, your wife and kid are your family. All mothers should be celebrated, new and old. You did that. Not the jerk. Your mother sounds like an insufferable drama queen. Not the jerk. You did offer to visit. She was unavailable. She shouldn't complain about that, especially not to your wife. Everyone sucks here. You asked if she could hang out. She said no. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. However, if I'm reading this right, you didn't give her much notice. You called her Sunday, the day of. Mom was busy. What, was she supposed to sit on her hands, staring at her phone, waiting for you to call? I mean, I would have appreciated a heads up. You couldn't have called or texted mom that Saturday? Hey, wife might want some time to relax Sunday afternoon. Do you have plans then? Can we come by? What time works for you? I'll let you know what's going on. However, mom does sound difficult, and you sound like you've been trying to make her happy for a long time. Mom didn't need to send text to your wife, as if it's her fault that mom didn't get a visit on Mother's Day. She's disappointed with you. She should be talking to you, not your wife. Either establish a relationship with mom that works for you both, or tell her to back off or go low contact. But whatever you do, get that "it's wife's fault" narrative out of her head. Am I the jerk for not giving up my seat for an elderly woman on the tram? I, 26 female, am currently 5.5 months pregnant. Even though I'm in my second trimester, I don't look very pregnant. Additionally, I wear baggy clothes, so it would be tough to see my baby bump either way. In terms of fitness and health, I'm really active, but recently I've been struggling with fatigue from the pregnancy. After a full day of work, I'm a uni lecturer, on my feet, I'm exhausted. Today I was on the tram headed home from work, and most of the seats were taken. I decided to sit in the seats reserved for those who need it, disabled, elderly, pregnant, or those with kids. I usually don't do this unless I absolutely have to, like today. I was minding my business while listening to my podcast when this older lady, I'd guess late 60s or early 70s, tapped me on the shoulder. I removed my headphones and asked how I could help her. She said to me that it's rude of me to sit in these seats and asked if I could stand instead. The way in which she said this was pretty rude. I'm a shy person and I hate conflict, so I was a bit taken aback by her attitude. As I began to try to explain to her how I'm pregnant, another passenger came over and repeated the sentiment of the older lady. Once they stopped talking, I managed to quickly say, "Actually, I'm pregnant," to which the older lady scoffed. She said I couldn't possibly be pregnant and told me to give her the seat. I refused to move and explained to her that I needed the seat as much as she did. At this statement, she lost it. By this point, we had reached the next stop and the tram conductor came to see what the yelling was about. The older lady told him what was happening and he looked at me and said, "Are you really pregnant?" To which I obviously said yes. He then said to the lady that there was a free seat near the front that she could have, which she begrudgingly agreed to take. The other passenger then said to me that even if I am pregnant, I should have given up my seat to an elderly person as they actually need it more. After this, I actually felt pretty guilty. Maybe she did actually want it more than me, but how can you tell? So, am I the jerk for not giving up my seat to an elderly woman on the tram? Edit. Today I told my coworker about the situation and he made me feel awful about it. After reading everything here, I feel confident standing by my decision. Pun intended. Thanks everyone. Not the jerk. The seats are there for the elderly, disabled, and pregnant for a reason. Pregnancy causes the human body to exist at the limits of like high-endurance athletes for months at a time. That comes with aches, pains, instability, fatigue, etc. There's also the safety concern. Many pregnant people have low blood pressure, making them dizzier and more prone to falling. You're also off balance because your weight distribution isn't what you're used to. And falling while pregnant can be anything from minorly sore to very, very serious depending on how you land, your luck, etc. Sorry, but I'm not risking my babies for etiquette. You did nothing wrong, and I'm sorry they made you feel like you did. Am I the jerk for not letting my sister-in-law and her friends stay with me? I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters-in-law. I get along with 3 of them wonderfully, and the 4th one just okay. No beef or anything, until now. She just isn't as social as the rest of us and keeps to herself a lot. We have a family group chat with us siblings and spouses that she doesn't participate in much, but I know she reads everything. Also, I live in a touristy area, and that is getting ready to amp up for the year. I posted in the group chat that my in-laws were taking my daughter to another state to visit family, and how excited I was for her to go, but also how excited I was for the alone time. I took my daughter to meet my in-laws and stopped for food on my way home with the plan to open all my patio doors, enjoy the breeze and sounds, and watch TV all night. I get home and drop the food on the counter, go into my bedroom and put my PJs on. I hear someone banging on my patio doors, and I walk out of the bedroom and it's my sister-in-law 4 with 3 other women that I don't know. They have suitcases and are all trying to open my door. I go to one door and open it slightly and ask, "What's up?" And my sister-in-law says that when she saw I was going to be kid-free for a few days, she decided to plan a girls' trip and come keep me company. I say, without asking if I wanted company, because I don't. One of her friends says, "You didn't make sure this was okay?" Sister-in-law says, "We are family. I don't need to check." To which I reply, "Oh no, You absolutely should have checked, because I would have told you no. Sister-in-law says,
Well, we're here now, so let us in.
I say, no, that's okay. I'm not up for company, especially 4 of you. Sister-in-law says,
But you have 3 guest rooms.
I reply, no, 1 is daughter's room, 1 is my office, and 1 is a guest room for invited guests, which you are not. Please go away. Then I closed the curtains that I had put up, mainly for decoration, and wasn't even sure if they would cover all of the windows. She knocked on my patio doors for about 15 minutes before they left. I blocked her on everything so I could enjoy the night. My brother called and asked me what happened, and I told him. He said that his wife had told him that I invited her. After me asking him if he really thought I was the kind of person who would invite 4 people to stay with me when I don't know 3 of them, he just said he would take care of it. She's now very mad at me and is telling anyone who will listen that I embarrassed her in front of her friends and she's never going to forgive me. Pretty sure I don't care though. I just wanted to enjoy my extended weekend alone. So, am I the jerk for not letting uninvited guests ruin my extended alone weekend? Not the jerk. Who invites themselves and their friends to someone else's house without asking for permission from the homeowner? She was way out of line and she embarrassed herself. Not the jerk. What kind of thought process is this? Sees a post about excited for alone time and then proceeds to invite herself and 3 people you don't even know to your house to keep you company? Oh no. Am I the jerk for contacting my husband's job without his permission? For background, my husband Kyle and I have been married for 3 years and I'm 5 months pregnant with our first kid. He and I are 30 and 29 respectively. Following a head injury he received from a car accident last year, Kyle has had epilepsy. He probably has a seizure once every 3 months, even with medication. Yesterday, after I got home from work, I heard Kyle fall in the bathroom, and when I went to check on him, he was seizing. Kyle was working from home when this happened, and his work team had a big project deadline coming up, so he had also been swamped with work. Kyle was feeling super woozy and out of it after the seizure. We decided that he needed to take it easy for the rest of the day. At one point, he asked me to get his glasses from his office, which I did. While getting his glasses, I noticed that he had 50 new messages from various supervisors and coworkers. I didn't read any of them, but when I noticed how many messages there were, I messaged my cousin, one of his bosses, privately and said that while he is fine now, Kyle just had a seizure and he's probably not going to be available for the rest of the day. My cousin was understanding and said not to worry about it. When I told Kyle that I messaged my cousin, he was upset with me because he didn't think it was okay for me to message them without telling him first. He yelled at me for crossing a boundary, something he later apologized for. His thinking is that it wasn't my place to message his supervisor because he never told me that it was something I could do for him. My thinking was that I didn't want his coworkers to think that he just went MIA for no reason, or that something was seriously wrong with him, but I can see how this might have been overbearing. I apologized to Kyle already for the sake of making peace, and I won't reach out to anyone on his behalf again. I honestly just want to know if I was in the wrong here, because I didn't have any bad intentions, and I feel like he overreacted. Am I the jerk? Edit. My husband's supervisors were already aware of his epilepsy. I didn't tell my cousin anything he didn't already know, for what it's worth. No jerks here. You did cross a line contacting his job, even if his boss is your cousin. However, it was out of love and caring. He got upset and yelled at you. You both apologized for your actions. I hope your husband is doing better. Agreed. Contacting a spouse or partner's job for them is pretty much only acceptable when the person is literally physically incapable of doing so themselves. And this was almost that, but not quite. I see a lot of people saying the cousin angle muddies the waters, but not really. In this context, he was still OP's husband's boss first and foremost, saying, "Hey, do you want me to let cousin know?" Or, "I noticed you've been getting a lot of work messages. Do you want me to send any kind of notice? Just let me know what you want me to say and I'll type it for you." Or anything like that would have been much better. But it's understandable, and given the context, I don't think this impacted his reputation at work or anything like that. But it sounds like it was a very stressful situation all around. Husband yelled when he shouldn't have and apologized. OP now has a better idea of what she should and shouldn't do if this ever happens again. Am I the jerk for telling my half-sister I'm not responsible for helping her with her mother's care? My half-sister's mother is my dad's widow. They were married until his passing a decade ago. But I was never close to her and had no contact with her in the years since my dad's passing, and only had minimal contact with her in the years before he passed after I left their house. Some of the big points of contention were money. Most of the money my parents had in theory was my mom's before marriage and was considered a premarital asset which she left entirely to me, and a bank account that only her parents had access to until I turned 18. The money from the actual marriage was entirely my dad's, and he got the house and stuff, which was in her name. But the money I had was a large sum, and there were times we struggled and I didn't want it to be used. There was also the fact I did not want to use that money to help cover the cost when my dad's wife had breast cancer to help pay for treatment so they'd have no debt. Another thing was, she hated that I called her by her first name, never mom, never mama, or some form of mom nickname. This was part of what made my dad and I so estranged as well. He was fully on board with me giving her a mom nickname. There was a lot of crap too when my half-sister was born and I had more extended family because my mom came from a close family and my dad did not, and neither did his wife. I was low contact for about 5 years before my dad passed, no contact with his wife after. My half-sister and I have always had a strained enough relationship. She didn't like my lack of attachment to her mom and was on team, give my mom a mom nickname because she's your mom now too. So she was telling me recently that her mom is sick and needs care, and it's expensive. She felt we should split the cost, and I owed her mom that much, and I owed her as a sister. I told her I won't be splitting the cost, and I'm not responsible for helping her with her mother's care. That she is her mother's kid, her only kid, and that means it's on her. She told me I was so cold to the woman who was my mother for 10 years of my childhood. She also told me I could do it for her as her sister, as a sister who is never the best sister and could make up for that now. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Keep your money. If your dad got the marital home after your mom passed, I presume it went to your stepmom after your dad passed. She can sell it if she needs to pay for medical bills. Not the jerk. You were deservedly cold to this person who stole the money your late mother left for you that should have been invested in your future. You don't owe them anything. Their BS has cost you enough. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay half of my partner's termination fee? I, 25 female, own my house. Not outright, I have a mortgage. My partner, male 27, has been renting his current property for nearly 2 years with a 2-year fixed tenancy agreement. We've been together for 3 years. He's recently been making little comments about having money issues. Nothing direct, but I felt he was definitely hinting at moving in. For example, he said that though he isn't struggling to pay the rent or the rest of his bills, he is unable to indulge in his hobbies. As we've been together a while, and it felt like the natural next step, and felt like that's what he was hinting at, I suggested he move in with me. We agreed that as he isn't gaining any equity in my house, he won't contribute to the mortgage, but he will split all utilities with me equally. We will be saving quite a lot of money monthly. Now, the letting agency has told him that he has to pay an early termination fee as he will be leaving his tenancy 3 months early. The fee is around £600. He asked me to pay half of it today and blew up at me when I said no. My reasoning was, he will be saving money in the long run by moving in with me anyway. I'm covering the cost of my property, so he should be covering the cost of his. I don't see this as a joint bill. He thinks I'm the jerk because I asked him to move in, so I'm the reason he's leaving his tenancy early anyway, so I should be responsible for half of it. When I told him he could stay there and move in with me when his tenancy ends, and therefore he would not be required to pay the fee, he got even angrier and said I was showing my true colors and didn't actually want him to move in with me or have an equal partnership. Unsure if it's important, but for clarification, he has enough in his savings to cover the whole fee. I have about double what he has in savings. He's aware of this as I've loaned him money from my savings before. I don't think I'm the jerk if I'm being honest, but he certainly does, so I thought I'd get some other opinions. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.